Hello, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. I went with hello today instead of hi. Good morning. How are you guys? It is a beautiful day for a launch, I think. And we're here for another Starlink mission. This is, well, let's just tell you all about it. If you ever have any questions about rocket launches that are coming up, what's going to be launching, where it's launching from, what rocket it's going to be riding on, we have you covered, my friends. I'm sure you've heard this before. You can just go to everydayastronaut.com, click on pre-launch previews, and here you go. You will have a nice snippet of upcoming launches. So today's launch is a Falcon 9 for Starlink 14, technically-ish. The liftoff time, as you can tell by the clock above my head, is taking off in 30 minutes and 24-ish seconds on October 24th, 2020, which is, by my guess, today. Yeah, whoops, I thought it was the 23rd today. Lost track of time. But it's taking off at 11:31 and 34 seconds Eastern. Yeah, so the mission name, this is Starlink version 1, so the actual operational version of Starlink. This is the 14th launch, but this is the 15th Starlink mission because they had a 0.960 satellites that they put up in 2019. So technically this is the 14th like operational Starlink mission. So yeah, launch provider. This is a SpaceX launch. It is their rocket. The customer is SpaceX. These are SpaceX satellites riding on a SpaceX rocket. That is fairly unusual in the industry. Very few people launch their own payloads. Normally, like you hire out a company to build a satellite, or a lot of times like it'll be like a telecommunications industry wants, some kind of new satellite to do something, and they'll hire, Boeing or Lockheed or Northrop or whoever, there's tons of satellite providers. And then the company also will have to hire a ride to space. This is not that. This is SpaceX building their own satellites and then launching them on their own rockets. Again, relatively unusual, really. But the rocket today is, of course, the Falcon 9 Block 5. This is B1060.3. I realized here, let me see if I can get let me see if we have our telescope feed in yet from Cosmic Perspective. Yes, we do. Yes. Let me see which one we want. Which one do we want? We've got this one here. Let me also check out. So yes, this is of course my friends Mary Liz and Ryan from Cosmic Perspective, providing us this morning with some beautiful views. It actually looks quite nice out there today. Nice cloud cover. Let me see. I also have another one, but I kind of messed it up just a little bit. There we go. Maybe that'll be close. The boxes might be funny. Andrew's gonna kill me if I put this on air, which I probably should, just so you guys see how bad my eyeing it is. Here, this is our wider view of the rocket this morning. Again, thanks to Cosmic Perspective. So everyone say hi to Cosmic Perspective. Find them on Twitter. They are awesome. Hopefully you've seen the incredible footage that these two bring. Just absolutely. Yeah, you're right, Andrew. We definitely need some contrast on that. It's ungraded. We are looking at ungraded footage from the camera, so I should probably put some kind of like LUT. The other one's really ungraded. Look at that. It looks kind of gray, but that's what happens when you have a sensor where you want as much color, basically as much dynamic range out of the sensor as possible. It allows you to be able to edit it in later. So, yeah. Okay. Anyway, back to our thing. Sorry, this is one of those mornings, I guess. This is booster 1060.3. So this particular rocket that is sitting out there, the first stage of it has flown. This will be its third time. So it's already flown twice. This would be its third launch. This launch location, this is Space Launch Complex 40 or Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Airforce Station / Space Force Station in Florida. And again, we say this every time, SLC. If you see SLC and if it's Space Launch Complex, that will be at Cape Canaveral. If it's just LC or Launch Complex, that means it's at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. So, yeah, just a fun little distinction. They're right next to each other. They're basically the same strip of land, just fun little thing to keep in mind. Payload mass. This is 15,600 kilograms, around 34,000 pounds for those of us metrically impaired. And these are 260-ish kilogram satellites, plus there's a dispenser that gets them all out of there. So these satellites are going to a 550-kilometer low Earth orbit-ish eventually. How's the weather? The weather is currently 60% go as of 2 days ago, but I don't know. I haven't really heard an update. I do have the mission control audio pulled up, I think. I thought I did. I don't know. Who knows? So we will be hearing if there's any kind of updates over the air. Will they be attempting to recover the first stage? Yes. This is basically, this is almost a requirement. I mean, it isn't a requirement for the mission success of this one, but really part of the business plan relies on them landing these rockets so they can deploy the satellite constellation inexpensively and roll it out without just totally going, running out of money. They have to basically be landing these rockets. So this will be landing 633 kilometers downrange on an autonomous spaceport drone ship named Just Read the Instructions. That is, of course, a nod to the whatchamacallit series by someone that I never remember. Will they be attempting to recover the fairings? The fairings will be recovered by Go Navigator and Go Searcher. That's good because they were not out there last time. They will be covered from, these are the other, okay, so they will not be recovered by the fairing catchers. They are still in port. One of them suffered a little bit of damage from the last mission when a fairing fell through the net and has to check some stuff out, I think. So it looks like, okay, weather is still 60% favorable. So I guess that's better than 50-50. These fairings are new, so they're probably going to be hopefully to retrieve them out of the water with Go Navigator and Go Searcher. This will be the fastest turnaround of a booster at 50 days, 22 hours, and 45 minutes, which would break the record by not much, by 4 hours? Basically, previous record 51 days, 2 hours, 8 minutes. We should note that this is happening quicker and quicker. They're chewing away at these record times, especially with these Starlink missions. The turnaround time of boosters is decreasing quickly. There's some coming up that might get us down to 30 days. I say us. SpaceX. I have nothing to do with this. There's some missions coming up that might get that time down to closer to 30 days between launches, which is, by most definitions, a pretty rapid turnaround. It's still not kick the tires and relight it again like Elon wants with Starship someday, but that's still impressive. 30 days would be an awesome milestone. So this is the fastest a booster has reached 3 flights at just 115. So it just flew, for the first time 115 days ago. That's pretty nutty to think, only 3 months ago. This is the 96th flight of a Falcon 9, 45th reflight of a booster, 63rd booster landing, assuming it lands today, 19th launch for SpaceX in 2020, 14th landing attempt on Just Read the Instructions, 13th consecutive landing if they nail it, 58th SpaceX launch from Slick 40, 9th third flight of a booster, 82nd orbital launch attempt of 2020 for the whole world. Man, I love those facts. You guys, the website crew is just kicking butt. If you guys need any more information, again, this is all at everydayastronaut.com and click on the pre-launch preview. This particular article, though, was written by Trevor Sesnick. Everyone say thank you, Trevor, for all of the useful information that the website crew brings. And while we're at it, go ahead and say thank you to our awesome community I'm just so proud of the community. And I think I have to straighten this. Nope, that's the shot we got. To all the mods, thank you guys, the YouTube mods. Everyone say thank you, mods. And and hello, Discord. And thanks, Trevor. And thanks, everybody. You guys are awesome. And thanks, website crew. Yeah, the website crew is doing a lot of work behind the scenes. We will be having a massive overhaul here relatively soon. So, yeah. All right, so let's get to some of your guys' questions. First off, Razenbot had 2 things. Thank you so much. But this one is, wait for it, which was just a sticker. I know that seems confusing now reading it out loud, but that's what that is. Wait for it. Thank you so much, Razenbot. Musical Wolves. Good morning from Yellowstone National Park. When rocket engines are being tested, what keeps them or the platform from lifting off after ignition? Great question. So just the engines, they're relatively, in the grand scheme of things around the world, like the Earth, the engines are relatively low thrust. We're talking the Raptor, or the Merlin engine is not even quite a meganewton of thrust, if I recall. I think it's like 900 and something, 981 or something. It's not even in a vacuum. It's not quite enough to basically what I'm saying is, like, you don't need that much like concrete or just regular like construction stuff to not have that rocket engine move. The problem is, when you have a rocket, and the options are, obviously you can hold down onto the rocket, like the Falcon 9 when they load it up and get it ready for flight, and do static fires of it. They hold it down via launch clamps. They even will hold it down if they're at McGregor. They actually have this cap that they put on with additional to help test the loads and everything too. So they hold it. The launch clamps can overcome all of that thrust. So they actually, it is a lot of power, but like in the grand scheme of, like, compared to, say, a boulder or something, like it's not quite. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know. It's still early. Capcom 1969. Thank you. This is from Jeremy. Olke says, Starlink can't come faster for me. I'm working in northern Canada and so sick of terrible internet in isolated places up here. It is still crazy to me. Some of the places that even have, there's places out there that are relatively populated, and I just can't believe how bad internet is some places. I'm quite spoiled. I'm sitting on 10 gig internet, so I can't necessarily complain myself. But yeah, it's just insane to me how generally poor the internet is for some people around the world. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Latchland in our Discord, Merlin. No, it's not 411. That would be like the Merlin 1C was 411 kilonewtons. I believe the 1D is closer to right under 1 meganewton. 411 is like old school Merlin. That's like baby old Merlin. All right. So let's see here. Yeah, you're right about Starlink. Like, this will be extremely important. You know, if we're sitting here fortunate enough to watch this right now, you know, there's almost 10,000 of you fortunate enough to have high enough speed internet to just casually watch this. That's not the case for everybody. That's definitely not the case for everybody around the world. That's not even the case for everyone in a first world country, like one of the richest countries in the world, the United States. There's people that literally don't have the bandwidth to stream this. And they might be paying way too much money to not even have enough bandwidth to stream this. To me, that just seems insane, but I get it. There's not a business case for it. That's where sometimes the free market system can fail, because if there's a low demand, it just means that there's no reason to run infrastructure and stuff like that for, you know, for some people that might live in areas that it just doesn't make any sense to do that. So this is where Starlink can help those situations. Pretty cool. So I'm only showing the top left corner of that feed. Hang on, let me check this out, because it does. That's what I thought too. That's exactly what I thought. But hold on, let me see if. Hang on. Ah, there it is. Hold on, give me 1 second. I will fix this. I was wondering what was going on. It didn't look right, obviously. I was like, that's interesting framing, Ryan. Okay, here we go. Way better. Holy Moses, that's a much better shot. I was wondering what is going on. Like, we're getting maybe I was like, maybe he's just, you know, gonna catch it once it starts to lift off, and it's this cool framing thing he's gonna do. Nope, just coming to find out OBS just decided to resize it, and I am too stupid to have noticed that it was my fault. Oh, that's funny. I'm a dork. I am not smart enough. Okay, so let's keep answering some of you guys' questions. Let's see here. This is from the Professional X, the Professional X. 2 a.m. here in Australia. Got my coffee and my normal hat on, ready for launch. Thanks again to you and your team. Well, thank you so much, the Professional. Man, that is 2 a.m. That's some dedication out there in Australia. Yeah. Hopefully this baby goes off here today. This is the second attempt at this particular launch. So, yeah. We should be getting SpaceX live stream here soon, probably in about the next 5 minutes, and then we'll get some more updates for you guys. Okay, so this is a great question from Matthew Duggar. Happy Saturday. Have you confirmed pointy end yet? No, and we have a fantastic shot here that can tell us. I can officially announce, based on observations from our friends at Cosmic Perspective, that the pointy end is up. The flamey end is down. I can't actually see the flamey end. Whoa, did you see that fish jumping? That was crazy. What? It just like leapt out of the water. What? That might be the craziest thing we see today, because these Starlink missions are just normal, but that fish, holy fish cam. Did everyone else see that? That was insane. Oh, that was great. That made my morning. Okay, sorry. Focus. This is Fish Cam 2020, watching all the fish launch into very suborbital trajectories, but that was awesome. Yeah, so I can confirm pointy end up is flamey end down. We can determine based on the pointy end that the flamey end is down based on prior knowledge of this rocket. I hope that that's safe. All right, this is from Plastic Pinocchio. How's it going, Plastic? Hey, Tim, as you probably know, the space agencies of Canada, Japan, Italy, etc., a lot of 8 companies or countries have signed a MOU with NASA to help the developing Artemis program. Do you think we'll see an international astronaut corps? That's a good question. And so there's this Artemis Accord that's being signed. It's not necessarily for the Artemis program. Confusingly, it is, but it isn't. It is, but it isn't. It's really a general accord for space activities. And NASA is looking for all countries to kind of sign and agree to certain terms, like, hey, maybe don't go and start scrapping our Apollo historic landing sites and bringing those back and selling pieces of Apollo landers. So there's some important things in there, and just how we go about. Actually, internationally, a lot of people wanted to expand the Artemis Accords to include not just the moon, but other planets and other asteroids and stuff like that. So there's actually language that was beefed up by other countries before signing. So it's actually a pretty diligent document, I think. Well, the fun thing, I think it's only like 7 or 8 pages. Yeah, we've got SpaceX ready to go. I'm gonna pull this thing up here quick and give you guys both shots here. Pew. All right. Anyway, so yes. So I don't know if we're ever going to see a full-blown international astronaut corps, something to that degree. But I don't see why we can't have. I don't know if we need one. I don't know if that's. Sometimes when you get so international, or like when you get everyone comes together so much, sometimes it ruins or deters people from having their own thing. And I think it is important that, we have Israel, we have Australia working on a space agency. We have, there's just a lot of countries working on their own things. So I don't know what the trade-off would be if there would be an international astronaut corps or not. But I think we should have something kind of figured out that has some kind of jurisdiction over all of that when hopefully multiple agencies land on Mars together. That's my goal. My goal, like I have any say in it. I do hope that when we land on Mars, it's a multi-agency thing, and that we have people representing people from all around the world landing on Mars, and not just, like the Apollo program where Americans, just America, 12 Americans walked on the moon and that was it. I really do hope this is an international collaboration and something that, I just think that'd be awesome. So we'll see. We will see. Sorry, that was a long thing. From Mukesh, how's it going? Does a Starlink satellite retract solar panels before any thruster firings to avoid any additional roll moments? Good question. Panels are only on one side. Yes, this I don't think so, actually. I think they can keep the satellites. So don't forget, just because a thruster is like off on one side and there's this big giant bit of mass sticking off the other, you can still point your thruster, well, if it can point, through the center of mass. And from my understanding, they are almost always firing that Krypton thruster, or like almost constantly, because of how much drag those solar panels induce. I don't know if we know too much about that, but I would assume that they designed it in a way that would make it so they can still fire their main Krypton thruster. Yes, Krypton, that Krypton. Superman would not want to be around Starlink satellites. But yeah, so it would, from my understanding, they're firing a lot, but I don't know if we know that much more about it. So, yeah. Good question. I'll see if I can find that answer someday. Maybe we can ask the Mr. Elon. Ryan Collier says, with your upcoming interview with Musk, will you try to sneak in some questions on Dragon XL? I know he shot you down during the last interview. Yes, I want to know more about Dragon XL. I want to know about more with the lunar Starship lander, especially now that we're seeing a mock-up being built out at Boca Chica. For those of you that don't know, back in April, Elon said he was going to do another interview with me and kind of a tour at Boca Chica. Last night, he reconfirmed that when I come down for SEAL number 8, I will be able to do another sit down with him of some kind or some kind of something. So that is in the works. So stand by for that. Hopefully in the next month or so, I'll have a new, hopefully long form interview with Elon, hopefully longer than 15 minutes or 20 minutes. We'll see how much time we can get with him, and we'll ask all those questions. I think, Dragon XL I want to know more about. I want to know more about the Starship lunar lander. There's a lot of exciting stuff to ask about. So, yeah. I'm excited for that. So we're going to listen in here, guys. I'll be right back.
Good morning. It's Saturday, October 24th, and you're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 11:31 a.m. Eastern Time launch from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Airforce Station in Florida. Hello from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'm a lead manufacturing engineer here at SpaceX. You're watching a live webcast for our 15th Starlink mission and our 19th mission overall this year. As you may be aware, this is our second attempt at this mission. On Thursday, we stood down due to an issue with the second stage camera, and we just wanted to take the time to re-examine the whole vehicle just in case. Turned out to be a small issue, so we are a go for today's launch, which could be our 100th successful flight of a Falcon rocket since Falcon 1 first flew to orbit in 2008. Starlink is a constellation of satellites that can provide high-speed, low-latency internet all over the globe, particularly in remote or rural areas where connectivity is limited or completely unavailable. As of today, we've successfully launched more than 800 Starlink satellites to orbit. Today, we will be performing 2 burns on the second stage and deploying our 60 Starlink satellites about an hour into the mission. Our satellites have ion thrusters on board that will take them to their final orbit once separating from second stage, but those 2 Merlin vacuum engine burns will get them as close as we can to their final orbit. We're now at T-minus 8 minutes and 45 seconds, and all systems are go for an on-time liftoff this morning. As for weather, it's currently a watch item, but at this time we are go for launch. If for some reason we are not able to launch today, we do have a backup opportunity for tomorrow at 11:10 a.m. Eastern Time. Now what you're seeing on your screen is a live view of Falcon 9, our 2-stage vehicle that stands at 229 feet or 70 meters tall, which is just a little bit taller than the wingspan of a 747. The booster used in today's launch will be taking flight for the 3rd time. Its first mission was in June of this year for the GPS-3 Space Vehicle 3 mission, and again just last month in September on our 12th Starlink mission. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle is the first stage, which has 9 Merlin or M1D engines to take the vehicle to the edge of space, where it will separate from the second stage and then start its journey back home to Earth. This reusable booster was designed for 10 or more flights with minimal refurbishment between each flight. The drone ship for this morning's mission is just read the instructions, which you can see there on your screen. And this will be the 3rd landing for this booster today if we do touch down on this drone ship today. Today will be the 17th time that we will fly a flight-proven booster just this year, and the 45th reflight of a booster overall. The second stage is sitting on top of the first stage, and it's connected by that black section on the vehicle, which is the composite inner stage, currently housing the second stage's single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine. That MVAC engine will ignite after stage separation and has about 981 kilonewtons, or about 220,000 pounds of thrust. This very efficient engine will propel the second stage carrying the Starlink satellites to a circular orbit around Earth. Prop loading for Falcon 9 began at T-minus 35 minutes, and our fuel is a highly refined form of kerosene called RP1. And we use the liquid form of diatomic oxygen, which is called LOX, as our oxidizer. Currently, RP1 and LOX are almost fully loaded on both stages, and LOX will continue to be topped off right until the last minute of the countdown. And that's because we want to keep that LOX, or liquid oxygen, as cold as possible before T0. At the very top of the rocket is where the payload sits attached to the second stage, and it's housed by that large nose cone structure which you see on your screen right now. This is called the satellite or payload fairing. The fairing will be protecting those Starlink satellites from all the aerodynamic loads and heat during ascent until we reach the vacuum of space. As many of you know, normally we attempt to catch our fairing halves, but our recovery vessels have been undergoing some maintenance. With that said, one of our recovery boats, Miss Chief, is en route, and you can see that on your screen, en route to recover the fairing out of the water following splashdown. As for the weather, it does look nice over there in Florida, but we have been keeping an eye out on some thick cloud layers, so we are keeping an eye on weather until T-minus 0, but so far it is looking good for launch today. The vehicle, satellites, weather, and range are looking good for an on-time liftoff this morning.
Sweet. Those ferrying boats are fast.
As we continue the countdown, we wanted to share a few recent updates on Starlink. This week, Microsoft announced a long-term strategic collaboration with SpaceX to connect Starlink with their modular data centers as part of Microsoft's Azure cloud computing service. This collaboration could help make internet access and networking capabilities available for customers in remote and rugged environments around the world. Speaking of remote locations, Starlink is making its way to another rural location right here in the United States. Earlier this week, the Ector County Independent School District in Texas announced their participation in a new pilot program to help local students and their families access high-speed, low-latency internet. Similar to other rural communities across the country, many residents of Ector County have limited to no connectivity. This issue was magnified for the school district when COVID-19 forced school building closures earlier this year, as nearly 2 in 5 students in the district do not have access to reliable high-speed internet at home. Starting in 2021, Starlink will connect up to 45 households in the community as part of the pilot program. And as the network capabilities continue to grow, it will then expand service to an additional 90 households in the school district. Our Starlink network is still in its early stages, but if you're interested in receiving future updates on Starlink news and service availability in your area, visit starlink.com.
That's pretty crazy that Texas...
We're currently at T-minus 3.5 minutes from liftoff, and Falcon 9 is heading down the final stretch of the terminal countdown. The first and second stages are almost fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. First stage prop loading will wrap up at T-minus 3 minutes in about 20 seconds here, and second stage will complete at T-minus 2 minutes. And you will see some venting of the LOX out of the transporter erector, or the TE, and that's when the super chilled liquid oxygen mixes with the much warmer ambient air. It does create those white clouds. You can kind of see that on your screen around Falcon 9 right now. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9's
complete.
And there's the LOX load completion call out. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9's autonomous internal flight computers will take over the terminal count. And this is what we call startup. Basically, that means that the rocket is in charge of making the decisions as long as the launch director is go for launch. And at this time, the Starlink payload continues to be healthy. Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is still looking good. We're still keeping an eye out on it, but weather is still looking good for T0. And the range is green for launch.
The reason I was surprised about Texas having this is not having to do with Dr. Raptor. It has nothing to do with the tech involved, obviously. It's more that it's a southern latitude. So Starlink will be
Coming up
most...
here at T-minus 2 minutes. We should be completing LOX loading here shortly.
Yeah, so it's Starlink... Because
Again,
of
as
how
I mentioned earlier, those white clouds that you see around Falcon 9 is from the venting of the LOX line. And this is normal.
Load is complete.
There's that call out for stage 2 LOX load complete.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
Again, those white clouds are normal that you see there on your screen.
Very much so.
Just 30 seconds away from Falcon 9 being in startup. Again, that's when the internal flight computers take over the terminal count. And now you can really see that venting of the LOX there from the transporter erector. This is to clear out the lines on the TE in preparation for liftoff.
Yeah, like I was saying, though, the...
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Sweet.
There's that call out. The Falcon 9 is in startup. In about
right.
10 seconds here, we should hear if we are go for launch.
Yeah, baby. So yeah, the Starlink satellite constellation services
And
upper
you heard
latitudes
that the LD
better.
is go for launch.
Now notice on the
So
right...
it looks like weather is in our favor today. So at T-minus 30 seconds, let's listen into the terminal count and watch as Falcon 9 takes our 60 Starlink satellites into orbit today.
All right, our telescope feed will be about 10 seconds ahead, 7 to 10 seconds ahead. So we'll actually be able to see into the future a little bit by watching on the right-hand side of the screen there's less delay between that and our YouTube ingestion. So get ready.
10, 9, 8, 7,
Good indicator.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
Oh, they're
0.
synced.
Ignition. And we have liftoff.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Body propulsion is normal.
We lost it for now. Position here quick until they get it back.
At T plus 40 seconds into liftoff, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, carrying our Starlink payload out into space. Now we just throttled down the engines in preparation for max Q, which stands for maximum aerodynamic pressure. This is the largest structural load that the vehicle will see throughout ascent. Should be coming up on max Q in a few seconds here.
Wow, that's a shot. I love
Max
that.
Q.
And there's that call out that we just passed through max Q. In about a minute, we will have 3 events that happen very quickly, one after another. That will be MECO, or main engine cutoff, stage separation, and SES-1, or second engine start 1. And main engine cutoff is where all 9 of those M1D engines shut down to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation, which is when the first stage separates from the second stage. After stage separation is SES-1, or second engine start 1. And this is where the MVAC engine lights up for its first burn and propels the second stage along with the Starlink satellites to orbit. And at T plus 2 minutes, we are about 30 seconds away from those 3 events. Again, that's MECO, stage separation, and SES-1. Again, it's SES-1 because we do have 2 burns of the Merlin vacuum engine on today's mission. We have a beautiful view of the first stage.
So this is looking up.
Stage
in the
separation
interstage.
confirmed.
There we go. Wow. There we go. Second stage ignition.
And there you just watched MECO, main engine cutoff, stage separation, and that second stage engine ignite.
The camera shut off.
Just
on the
about
second
15 seconds here from fairing deploy. And on your right-hand screen, you can see a view of inside of those fairing halves, looking at the Starlink payload as well.
stage. And my friends, we do have.
And on your left-hand screen is first stage,
We do
making
have
its
the
way
first
back to Earth.
stages. Simulated telemetry
Fairing
here, thanks
separation
to.
confirmed.
Oh, there we go. Payload fairing separation. So notice on the left-hand side of the screen, top left part of your screen right now, you see simulated telemetry from Flight Club. So Declan Murphy has programmed this flight plan so we can follow along with the booster. Now notice that the booster is currently at this moment still actually going up. Even though it's turned off its engines, it is coasting up because it's following its ballistic trajectory. So yeah, that will be pretty much nailing it dead on. There's unless the rocket fires its engines, it's going to be following this trajectory, right? And it will be firing its engines here in a little bit when it does its entry burn.
Entry burn to assist in slowing the vehicle down as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. This will be a 3-engine burn, starting off with the center E9 engine and followed not too long after by 2 additional engines reigniting. Then the second and final burn for the first stage will be the landing burn, which is just a single E9 engine, and that is enough to rapidly slow down the vehicle to allow it to touch down on its landing zone. And again, for today, the landing zone is just read the instructions, which is currently out in the middle of the ocean waiting for this booster to come back. Stage 2 is looking good and nominal. Got a nice view of that MVAC engine on your right-hand screen. stage 2 is taking our Starlink payload to its targeted orbit, and these 60 Starlink satellites will join the constellation already on orbit, which are designed to provide high-speed, low-latency internet to people here on Earth, and especially to places where good internet is really hard to access. It's just after T plus 5 minutes, so we're just about a minute away from the entry burn beginning on the first stage. Entry burn will be...
Trajectory.
There's a call out. The vehicle second stage is on nominal trajectory. That entry burn will last about 22 seconds long. And you can see on your left-hand screen the first stage, the grid fins are deployed, but they actually don't start steering until after entry burn. And that's because it requires the atmosphere and air to be flowing through those grid fins.
So I actually will be talking about these a lot in a video that I just shot last night about comparing the Falcon 9 and Starship, how the two systems compare. It's a very comprehensive guide on
clear
Starship.
Views on both the first and second stage. You can see Earth in the background. We're just about 15 seconds or so away from that entry burn on the first stage.
Here we go. Get ready.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Stage 1 entry burn steward.
And there you can see the entry burn has begun. And as you saw, the plume started out small and then got larger, and that's because we light up the first single engine and then followed by 2 additional engines on this entry burn for a total of 3.
Watch it slow down there.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
And entry burn is now complete. As you see, those engines have shut down.
I noticed that it's
So next
sped back up
in about a minute or so will be that landing burn.
because it went back. It's falling again, but now notice the atmosphere is getting thicker and thicker now, and it will begin to slow down, and you can kind of see that now in the telemetry. So interestingly, they one of the biggest reasons why they do that entry burn is not necessarily it slows it down a decent amount. It actually cuts off almost half the velocity, but it also puts a barrier of a cooler thermal barrier between the rocket and the plasma, because the exhaust coming out of the rocket engines is a lot cooler than the plasma that can be built up from reentry. So the bow shock, basically the compressed air in front of the rocket, is going through the atmosphere so quickly it compresses air and it turns it into a plasma, thanks to the laws of thermodynamics. So they have to basically avoid that from touching the rocket. So they literally just light up the engines. That puts literally like a force field out in front of the rocket as it re-enters. It's really quite fascinating that works. Okay, let's see if Declan Murphy nailed it again this time.
Very clear and beautiful day over there in Florida. So hopefully we get a nice, beautiful view of first stage landing.
That is a beautiful view.
Stage 1 landing burn.
There's confirmation, stage 1 landing burn. You can kind of see that burn kind of shaking the camera there.
Sweet.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Seco.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And we had a little bit of a rough camera view there, but the Falcon has landed on our drone ship for its third landing on Just Read the Instructions. This marks our 63rd successful recovery of a Falcon first stage and the 11th for Just Read the Instructions. And looks amazing as we can see it there now, standing stably there.
Lost the signal, Cape.
Now we're waiting on your right-hand screen for SECO 1, which is second engine cutoff 1.
I have a feeling that was like a camera mount issue. Like literally the camera kind of like knocked over and it just looked way more violent. But from our vantage point, it looked like the rocket came in at like insane velocities. Just the most aggressive hover slam ever. They lit up 9 engines for that one. I have never seen anything like that. I'm pretty sure it's literally just like a...
And there's that call out that we are in a good orbit.
Okay, they're in a good orbit.
So now the second stage is going to coast in this orbit for roughly 35 minutes. So we're going to take a quick break during this coasting time, but we'll leave you with an animation so that you could see where the Starlink satellites are in the coast phase. So we'll see you back here at T plus 43 minutes for the second stage engine relight.
Okay, so who Raise your hand if you thought for sure they lost that booster. I'm definitely one that thought they lost. We got to watch that again. That was something. So you can tell, first off, this is a little bit more shaking than normal. So I'm wondering if the mount itself or something was a little bit loose or damaged or something. Because, yeah, look at this. So let's just take a look here. Yeah, that camera mount is on something that's just wobbly, but that looked so weird. You can kind of make it out a little bit, but that wobbly camera does not help. Yeah, that was a very, very loose camera mount. Since it was shaking, oh, it was a good kilometer away when it started shaking. I mean, that thing was loosey-goosey. That was hilarious. Oh, man. That was crazy. Yeah, let's even see how much. Notice you can really see. Look at this. I mean, it is shaking way, like right away. So it was definitely a loose camera mount or something. They're going to have to go out there and throw a little extra duct tape on this one or something. But that is hilarious. It's just getting knocked around that time. Helps you remember how violent these landings are and why you would not want to be anywhere near this, because that thing is producing an awful lot of thrust still and an awful lot of just force. There's a lot of force coming out of that. That is hilarious. Okay, we're going to put that up. We're going to catch back up to real time here. Oh, yeah, I forgot. You guys taught me that I can just click live, and I forgot to do that. All right, so we're going to stick this guy up here. Meow. And we're going to answer some more of you guys' questions. So, are you not entertained? Oh, that was crazy. Like I said, I actually just last night, so for those of you that have been paying attention to what I've been working on behind the scenes, especially the patrons in Discord, you guys know that we have been spending months and months on a family tree of Soviet rocket engines and the kind of the history, the whole history of those engines. But I decided, because that is so evergreen and because it's needs to be right. Like, this is history. It needs to be right. Some experts that I sent the script off to found a couple errors, and we're kind of all discussing and just making sure that script is perfect, because history, you can't mess up. So instead, I whipped up a quick video. I'm just gonna make a quick video about Starship. You know, teach you guys what's new on Starship, what's different. Well, that video ended up being it'll be 45 minutes long. It was what was it, 19-page script? It was ridiculous. So yeah, I shot that though. We're going to give you a full rundown on what is the same and what's different between the Falcon 9 and Starship. The title is, how does Starship work? Because I still get a lot of questions about like some of the systems. This will be a comprehensive guide on Starship, because a lot of people still don't know, you know, there's so many little things, so many little tweaks, like the header tanks, and like they're not using really any COPVs on the future Starships. They'll be using autogenous pressurization of the tanks. They'll be using hot gas thrusters. There's a lot of new technologies on Starship that we need to talk about. So that's what I decided to just kind of knock out here real quick for you guys. So yeah, it's going to be the second stage is reusable bootleg Philly 7 on Starship, but not on Falcon 9. That's something that we talk about as well. The biggest issue there is velocity. So velocity is killer. As you can see right now, the second stage is coasting at 27,000 kilometers an hour. If you double the speed of something, the atmospheric forces that it encounters, the heat that it encounters from the atmosphere on reentry goes up by velocity cubed. So if you double something's speed for reentry, it increases the heat that vehicle will experience by 8 times. So the second stage is going about 4 times faster than the first stage, which means that yes, it experiences 64 times the amount of heat on reentry. So that's the big game changer here for Starship. Is Starship needs to be able to handle the upper stage reentry forces and land it, and that's a huge challenge. That's a very, very big challenge. So this video will be really, I think this will be a really good video. It's going to time out well with serial number 8, because I think a lot of questions will be raised by serial number 8, why they're doing what. And I think it'll help understand, when we're seeing all these Starlink missions, seeing all these Falcon 9 missions, what's new, with Starship and what's different. So get ready for that. We're going to hopefully have that before I hit the road. Andrew, by the way, I think we'll have to see when SN8 is going to do its 15-kilometer hop. But say it's if we can get it done before then, I think we're going to get it done before. But I did think it'd be fun to start off the video by standing in front of SN8, serial number 8, Starship, since I'll be going down there anyway. But I don't know if that's what I'm gonna do. I don't know. We might just post it without a fun intro in front of the booster and in front of that. We'll shoot other stuff there. That's what we'll do. We'll shoot other stuff there. But I know, Andrew, we could have it finished and then slap an intro on it. I know we could do that, but I'm guessing we'll be done before we hit the road. And I don't think we want to delay it by like 3 days just for that. I don't know. I could be talked out of that. Yeah. So, all right, let's get back to you guys' questions. Oh, and yes, someone did ask, this shirt, the Future Martian shirt, is up 10% off today for the next 24 hours using coupon code LAUNCHDAY. Go to shop.everydayastronaut.com. The Future Martian shirt is a huge nod to Starship, actually, because it has the actual landing coordinates of where the Prime A candidate landing site is currently for Starship at Arcadia Planitia on Mars. So this is definitely one of our nerdiest shirts. It has the atmospheric composition and the gravity and everything of Mars on the sleeve right there for you in case you need to remember any of this stuff, and reminder to not wear this on Mars without a suit. Yeah. So the Future Martian t-shirt is 10% off today using coupon code LAUNCHDAY. Go to shop.everydayastronaut.com. And of course, that helps me be able to do things like getting my butt down to see Starship, the serial number 8 hop. We have an entire, literally a mobile studio that we're bringing along with us. That's going to be absolutely incredible. We're going to be able to provide the best coverage possible for you guys. Multi-cams, still being able to ingest a lot of things. It's like literally a studio in some boxes. And we're going to do the best job we can to provide coverage. We're hoping Cosmic Perspective is coming down with us, hopefully, assuming things time out and doesn't interfere with Crew 1. And in which case they will be bringing the telescopes or telescope, and we will have telescope footage and everything. So we'll be doing a full production for you guys for SN8. So you'll want to be tuned in. But yeah, if you want to help me do that, head on over to the most fun way to do that is to go to shop.everydayastronaut.com and pick up some cool, fun swag for yourself. So there you go. Oh, and we also I keep forgetting, we do have new lines of little tiny human merch. I know that I totally forgot that we did this. We now do have full flow onesies. We have Future Martian onesies. We have all the favorites, and anywhere from onesies to toddler up to youth tees now. Finally, like we didn't have youth tees until now, and we didn't have the same cool stuff so if you have a little tiny human or a small human or a young human, we've got you covered. So yep, shop.everydayastronaut.com. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. Really means a lot to me. All right, and from Kadaws, astrophysics student here studying for a math exam on Friday. Your streams are always a great motivator. Hey, good luck with your freaking math exam on Friday. I'm very impressed that you're studying a full 6 days ahead of time. That would not have been me. You're right, Andrew. Andrew says the most fun way is probably Discord. Discord is awesome. Yeah, if you want to join our Discord channel, we have an awesome community. If you're looking for people to talk about space, learn more about space flight, and just kind of see behind the scenes a lot, you can join our Discord channel by becoming a Patreon member by going to patreon.com/everydayastronaut. You're right. That is probably a more fun way than wearing a shirt, but yeah, you're right. Probably. Our Discord community is awesome, so yeah. So everyone say good luck to Kadaws on that exam. This is from Cottlesworth. Hey, Tim's greeting from frozen Minnesota already? I mean, I'm right here. I'm in Iowa. It is actually really cold. It's 30 degrees right now. That is stupid cold. Okay, hey, Tim, greetings from Minnesota. Random question. If SLS is so underpowered, why don't they just add 2 more solid rocket boosters to it? So, Cottlesworth, that's a totally fair question. It's not actually that it's underpowered. Really, I think, to me, the biggest flaw with SLS is it's wanting to use the core stage from... It's because it's using the RS-25s, which are space shuttle engines. Those are basically designed to run from sea level up into the vacuum of space, right? They're designed to run for 8 full minutes. If you want to utilize the performance out of them, you run them for 8 minutes. That's actually not a very efficient thing to do. So the core stage is freaking huge. They would actually get a lot more advantage if they could do like 3 RS-25s on the sea level, cut the stage in like 2/3 and have a way bigger second stage with another RS-25 and have a more standard staging. The vehicle would get like almost double the payload capacity or something. It is stupid, but for some reason, I don't really understand. I think it's just because it was the easiest path forward. There is no restart or air start capabilities of the RS-25, so that's out of the question. There's a lot of, because they use shuttle parts, there's a lot of design constraints. And this is basically the easiest path forward is what SLS is doing currently. So it's the easiest way to make a super heavy lift launch vehicle. And unfortunately, it's compromised in its total payload capability. You know, like we said in that SLS versus Starship video, its TLI capability is only something like 27 tons. The amount of mass it can send to the moon is 27 tons. And so, yeah, adding 2 more solid rocket boosters would be a no small feat. You know, that you add a lot more side stresses to the core. You add a lot more, there's just a lot more, period. A lot more things that have to happen. And it's not necessarily that it's lacking. It could take advantage of that if it had a way bigger upper stage. But don't forget how long that huge thing is. I mean, it could, of course, there's plans for, Block 1B. There's plans for a Block 2 SLS that do have a stretched upper stage and things like that. But I think right now the upper stage, yeah. And there's plans for more powerful boosters, but adding 2 more boosters, believe it or not, wouldn't give you as much performance as having a bigger upper stage, is what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, there you go. That's kind of a quick rundown on that. But that's a fantastic question. SLS is fascinating. I did realize, okay, so obviously I've made a couple videos now featuring SLS, and we will do an upcoming video about the part 3 of SLS versus Starship is what commercial options can replace SLS today? Like, what are our real options if we want to get to the moon by 2024? What other vehicles can do it? So we'll look at things like that, like proposals of alternate SLS options, or might even get crazy. We might see what would happen if you strapped 4 Falcon Heavy boosters onto SLS to save the 500 million or whatever the cost is of those solid rocket boosters. We'll really dive into that, but I think that's going to be a great video in the near future. So yeah, stand by. We'll dive into that. Ben again. Hi again. How big is a single Starlink satellite? I don't know the exact dimensions, but the fairing on the inside is about 5 meters wide. It's, I think, 5.2 meters wide on the inside. So obviously, because it has to fit that square inside of the diameter, I think they're probably something like, I'm going to make something up. I think they're about 4 meters long and 1 meter wide. Does someone actually know? I don't know if, anyone know? Oh, here we go. A Starlink satellite with panel deployed is 0.2 meters thick. Thank you, Joey Murphy. By 2.8 meters by 9 meters. So the 9 meter has to be with the solar panel deployed. So 2.8 meters wide. 2.8 by 1.4 by 2. Okay, so undeployed, 2.8 meters by 1.4 meters. That sounds about right. Okay, cool. There you go. That's awesome. So there you go, Ben. Yeah. And so that's what about, so 2 point, oh God, don't make me do this. Yeah, it's basically 12 feet, or wait, 3 times 3. Basically 9 feet by 4.5 feet. There we go. Math. Adam Davidson, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Hunter Hall says, trust me, we need it in Montana, in reference to Starlink. Yeah, again, there's places in the United States, and we consider ourselves like we always think we're like top dog and everything, yet there's people that don't even have like 1 megabit per second internet. Like no access, no options that aren't like insane, low, really poor latency satellite options that are really expensive as well. So, all right. So Technical Fool, fish space program is go. I loved that fish. That fish made my morning. I'm not going to lie. That fish, I wonder if Ryan and Mary Liz even saw that fish, because that was awesome. This is from myself. Hi, Tim. Quick question. Astronauts feel the G-force in any of the elliptical orbit endpoints. Gravity assist slingshots have increased G-forces, right? That is okay. No, believe it or not. No. I don't think you'd ever feel, because you're not changing. Yes, your velocity is changing. Okay, so the question, let's just take a really highly elliptical orbit, for example, right? Say you have an orbit that goes out to the moon and back, right? Would you feel it? Because you're actually going really, really, really fast when you're down at your periapsis, at your lowest point, your perigee, and you're going really, really, really slow at your highest point, just like a roller coaster. You know, top of the mountain or top of the hill, you're going really slow, almost paused, almost stopped, and at the bottom, you're going really, really fast. Exact same thing with an orbit, right? But you're not changing, you're not accelerating. Your acceleration is a constant. At Earth, it'd be 9.8 meters per second squared. Yes, it would actually increase a little bit as you get closer to Earth. You actually do experience greater gravitational pull, but I think I don't know, guys. They're in the rate of velocity. You know, it wouldn't change. I mean, you wouldn't have anything to change against. So I don't know what you wouldn't. There's no way you'd feel that, right? You wouldn't feel it. You wouldn't feel it, despite your velocity changing. It's changing at a constant. And yes, you're in an inertial reference frame. That too. You are in your frame of reference is moving with you at the exact same rate. So therefore, like, you're not sitting in a thing that's feeling something, you know, even if those things are changing, as long as you're changing together, you know, you won't feel it. You and the ship are both the same. It's not like you're getting pinned against the ship and the ship is moving at a certain velocity different than you. That's when you feel it. That's when you feel the G-forces in a car, is because the car is pushing you because it's currently moving at a velocity that's different to your relative velocity, and it's accelerating you. That's why you feel it. Same with in a spaceship. If you're, you know, as long as you're both, you and your frame of reference are moving at the same velocity and under the same G-forces, you would not feel it because of your frame of reference. I think that's how best to explain it. Okay, cool. Corpse hatch versus innocence tube. So fishy end up, splashy end down. I really want to just make this a fishing channel from now on and just watch fish jump. I mean, that would be awesome. Peter Game says, I haven't slept all night. Peter, get some sleep. Sleep is important. Sleep is important. Peter Danilov, follow-up. My guess is the thrust from the Merlin engine is nothing compared to, say, the force of a skyscraper imparts on its beams and the foundation. If construction can hold that, clamps can hold a rocket during full fire. Exactly, Peter. Exactly. Like, yes, a rocket engine produces a lot of force, but it can really easily be overcome by having, too much force applied opposite of that, right? It just has to have more mass than it can push, right? Or more weight than it is capable of lifting up, or more force applying against it that prevents it from lifting something. In Boca, good questions. So they use let's see, hang on. Did I go down? What's going on? Apparently YouTube might have bonked it for a second. I didn't lose connection here. Sorry, guys. Okay, so from the Bill, cloud cover, rain, snow. Really bad clouds would probably interfere with Starlink, but it is using, what is it? It's a different wavelength that's hoping it's less susceptible to cloud cover. So it's not like a traditional satellite. I don't remember what it is, but yeah. There is the ability to be able to transmit through clouds, basically, and most adverse weather conditions. But as far as flooding in Boca Chica, of course that's a concern. They are at sea level, you know, everywhere at sea level, which is like half of the world's population or more or something, is at risk of flooding. I mean, that's just the reality. And yes, absolutely, that's a consideration, but I'm sure there are ways to mitigate that. You know, people have had to mitigate that for years, and then you see things like, you know, Miami is literally like sinking. Basically, and they're having to mitigate it big time because the fact of the matter is the ocean sea level is rising. Period. We can measure that to like millimeter accuracy thanks to satellites and other things that aren't satellites. We can actually measure that. And the ocean is rising. So yeah, anywhere that's touching the ocean, it's kind of spooky. But, you know, obviously humanity tends to be pretty strong-willed. Strong-willed in some ways. Strong-willed when it comes to saving assets after the fact. And we can build, we can build barriers, we can build water retention walls and things like that pretty well. Look at Netherlands. The whole country of Netherlands is like underwater. Like literally, I'm pretty sure the airport is something like 20 or 30 meters below sea level. So we can do it. Boca Chica can do it. Anywhere can do it. It's just a matter of will, and where there's a will, there's a way. But meanwhile, it might not be a bad idea to consider trying to alleviate some of the flooding just a little bit through some smart choices. Maybe. Robert Gleason says, thank you, says good work. And I say thank you to you, Robert Gleason. I really appreciate that. Jonathan Alter says, would you fly on Crew Dragon Falcon 9 for free with current safety and comfort? You know, I do want to see it fly a few more times. And see it perform normally. And if I had a destination, I don't think, the biggest thing for me is I would not want to go up to the International Space Station and like get in the way. There's a lot of like important science going on up there. It's not necessarily the most creature comfort place. It's really a dedicated workspace. It's a floating laboratory, and people don't necessarily understand that. The closest thing to a creature comfort is like the cupola, right? The actual beautiful glass viewing port. I would rather go up to like a commercial space station or just hang out on Dragon for like 2 days. I think in 5 years I would consider something like that after it's flown a bunch. I think I would yeah. Oh, Sheepful Airport, I don't know how to say it, is 7 meters below, sorry. Okay, so 7 meters below. That's still a long ways below sea level. That's nothing to shake a stick at. But yeah, there we go. I would someday, for a short period of time. I don't think I'd want to be in space for like weeks, though. I would do like 3 or 4 days, maybe 5. I don't know. Thank you for the membership, Tamara. I really appreciate that. This is, let's see here. This is from Dimitri. Are you happy being between us everyday people and space companies? Would joining SpaceX as official journalist, evangelist make me happier? So I am technically an official journalist. I am still considered by some accounts an official sanctified journalist, right? I get credentials for NASA missions. I get to go on site for, like, I have to sign NDAs occasionally for certain things. By a lot of traditional accords, I am a journalist. But really, evangelist is more almost of what I kind of want. I want to just be teaching what I'm learning. Because this whole thing, everything that is Everyday Astronaut is a learning project for me. And then me, just by the nature of what I'm learning, getting excited about it and teaching you what I'm learning. That's the whole point, right? I've said it several times that I don't want to work for anybody because it could endanger that second part. I might still be able to learn. I would learn a ton more if I worked at an aerospace company. I could sit there and ask, well, depending on my job, I could sit there and ask questions all day long, soak up as much knowledge as I could possibly fathom, but then I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't share my excitement and knowledge about what I'm learning with the everyday person. That's the whole point of what I do, is to enlighten just a little bit, as much as I can at least, what is going on behind the scenes. What is so exciting about spaceflight? Why spaceflight is something to look forward to? Why it's something to strive and increase your own knowledge and your own education to go out and pursue a job in the aerospace industry. Why it matters even for an average person if you don't care and you're a chef, you're a cook, and you're a school teacher, you're a janitor, whatever you are doing, you still can look at this stuff and be excited about it. It is something to look forward to. And I think the best way to be excited is to be educated, have an education about it, and have some sense of perspective about the amount of work that goes into these projects, about the amount of engineering, the thought, and all of the little problem solving. By enlightening those things, I think we can apply a lot of that to our own lives, right? I think that's the whole beauty of doing this, of learning. Like, for me, my life, again, 5-6 years ago, I couldn't have told you anything about rockets. Literally 6 years ago, I was at Kennedy Space Center for the first time, and I didn't know the difference between a solid rocket booster and a liquid fueled booster. No idea. I could have pointed to a space shuttle, said that was a space shuttle. I could have pointed to a Saturn V and said that was a Saturn V. That was about it, right? So my life has personally changed a lot, and there's a lot of little life lessons that you can apply just when you educate yourself about something that's outside of your own domain, and it provides you a perspective that I think is extremely important, especially this day and age. So for me, this is what I want to do. This is my dream job. I'm already living my dream job. I'm already getting access to the people that I want to talk about or talk with, obviously Elon Musk, Peter Beck, Jim Bridenstine, Tori Bruno, who we still haven't ever actually connected, but we're constantly like trying to figure something out. I'm doing what I love, and I love what I do. So, I don't really, the only thing I would do, I said this on another stream recently, is I would consider being a consultant, where if they could pay me, if this is a job and I could get paid to just walk around a company, especially like an aerospace company, something that I'm passionate about, and ask people what they're working on and what their challenges are and what keeps them up at night, and then learn kind of their roles and just try to absorb knowledge and then go around and talk to people and connect dots and be like, wait, you're dealing with problems with titanium at CryoGen. Have you talked to Linda over there? Because she's dealing with that same thing, and actually help connect some of those problem-solving bits. That to me would be like almost like intercompany networking, where you just get this, because I think I have a decent ability to absorb bits of knowledge and just provide a little bit of context for things. So I think I would latch onto that social aspect of meeting people, learning what they're working on, learn little tidbits here and there, and then connect some dots. That would be like almost my dream job. I would consider consulting and signing NDAs away if I could do that, because I think that'd be really fun. So there you go. That's my rant. And sorry, now that we're way behind, I have to say this because there's still 8,000 people watching, and this I promised my friend I'll probably only do this about 2 more times, but this is like one of my absolute best friends is working on something awesome in the Los Angeles area. If you are in the Los Angeles area, you consider relocating to Los Angeles. And speaking of jobs, if you work in the food industry, if you know how to run a bar and or a restaurant, and you love space and you love rockets, yeah. I have a guy for you. I have a friend that needs you. Someone looking to run a kitchen, and they're if you have a resume, if you've ran a kitchen before and you happen to be in LA and you love rockets, I have the perfect job for you. Tell your friends if you know someone that is in the food industry that knows how to run a high-end restaurant or a high-end bar, especially managing people and stuff like that. On the Moon Res, R-E-S, on the Moon R-E-S at gmail.com. Send your resume there. On the Moon RES at gmail.com. Let's see if we can find that perfect person for one of my absolute best friends. It'll mean a lot to them. And I'm just excited about this. Trust me, I'm really excited about what they're working on. I know all about it, and I can't say anything more. But if you know how to run a restaurant, please send your stuff out to onthemoonres at gmail.com. I promise it's worth it. I promise it's worth it. George or probably George Miranda. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Brady Bowl says, if sat deployment happens in a circularized orbit, what happens to the tension bar and empty dispenser after deployment? Are they deorbited somehow or become space junk? So that's an important thing with what SpaceX is doing. So, at first, they put themselves into a lower orbit. Right now, you can see on screen up in the corner here, boop, it's going 235. It's at 235 kilometers in altitude. That's not their fully operational orbit. And so when they deploy, they're actually in a lower orbit. It might be like 235 by 300 something, but it's low enough that certain things like that, like the tension rods, would deorbit relatively soon, like within months. Up at 550 kilometers, that already changes it to like a year? 5 months or a year or 5 years or something of if it totally lost contact. There's a gradient, it's not linear. It's like exponential. The closer you are to the atmosphere, the quicker stuff deorbits. So those tension rods and stuff like that are made out of materials that are supposed to be totally destroyed on reentry. So that's good. So you don't have a tension rod hitting your house. But also they are hoping to not contribute to space debris. Hopefully that answers your question. Oh yeah, and people are noticing that it might, you might see the speed and the altitude change right now on the vehicle because, of course, it's in a non-circular orbit right now. So as it's either going up or down, its speed will change, because that whole thing about going up or down like a roller coaster, if your altitude increases, your speed decreases, and vice versa. Hopefully that, yeah. All right, so this is from Dimitri. How do they make, store, and transport locks to the launch pad? That's a fantastic idea. This is one of those things I need to kind of learn about. But basically, there's some way to sort and capture oxygen straight from the atmosphere. Of course, it's all over us. It's 20% or whatever of our atmosphere. And Joey Murphy says the Starlink tension rods are released at a circular 400 by 400 kilometer orbit. They'll stay up for about a year. Not a single one has deorbited yet, even from the first Starlink launches. Really? If that's true, that is wow, yeah. For the actual tension rods, I did not realize that. But are they actually deployed at a 400 by 400? I don't know if I've heard that. I think there's been different deployments for different, like they've done a few different varieties of deployments. That seems, yeah, it's not 400 kilometers. I don't think they go 400. Yeah, they can't go 400 by 400 because right now, we're coming up on the second stage burn, and it obviously you can't right now. The 276 at best could be its lowest point, right? Because of how orbits work. So they could not jump with one burn up to 400 by 400. That's just how orbital mechanics work. You'd have to do a burn, raise it to 400, then go up to 400 kilometers, do another burn, and raise your lowest point up to 400 kilometers. And they're just doing a single burn. So I think it's more like 280 by 280. Yeah, Starlink 1 was different. Like I said, they've changed their orbits and how they deploy these quite a bit. So Joey Murphy's pointing out that is currently debris for the tension rods at 448 by 433, but it has changed historically. So, okay, so back to how do they make and transport locks? So I don't actually know the exact physical mechanism that creates and pulls in locks, but then you can chill it using just almost the same thing as a refrigerator or a freezer, where you have a compressor and a heat exchanger, and you're just compressing, and again, laws of thermodynamics, you can get it down to liquid state. Once it's in a liquid state, you can put it inside of a vacuum. So have like a cylinder and then have a vacuum chamber around it, or like a vacuum seal, and therefore no conductive heat can transfer in. You will still get a little bit of, heat from the tubing and stuff, and you can have some boil off there, but you can keep it at that cryogenic temperature by having it in a vacuum sealed thing. Like I said, I will learn more about that and how you just make propellant and drain propellant and all of those things. And do that in an upcoming video. That is absolutely one that I get asked a lot, and I do not know that much about, so I'd really love to learn myself. So, Dimitri, I'll get a better answer for you in probably a 30-minute video someday. John Delos, holy heck, I live in Ector County. Super proud that we'll be part of that project. That's awesome.
To the webcast for our 15th Starlink mission. So far, we've had a successful on-time liftoff of Falcon 9 from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Airforce Station. We had a little bit of a wobbly camera view, but we did successfully recover our first stage for its third landing on Just Read the Instructions. And we've also successfully entered our first coast phase for the second stage. We're now waiting for SES-2, or Second Engine Start 2, which is the second and final relight of our MVAC engine. This is a very short burn. It's just about 2 seconds long, but those couple of seconds go a very long way, and that gives the second stage just enough thrust to get to the final drop-off orbit for our Starlink satellites today. Again, this is the second of our 2 burns, so SES-2 is coming up here in about 20 seconds or so, and will be followed immediately afterwards by SECO, or Second Engine Cutoff 2.
There we go. No downlink right here for video.
And we did get those call outs for SES-2 and SECO-2. It was a very quick burn, just 2 seconds long. Now we're waiting for confirmation of good orbit. Oh, there it is.
Video is always about 7 seconds
And there
behind.
you saw on your screen that SES-2 and SECO-2 happening very quickly. Now just waiting for confirmation of good orbit here.
Nominal insertion.
And there's that call out for nominal insertion. So we are going to coast in this phase for about 18 minutes or so. And while it's in this coast phase, it will start to spin on its central axis. So this is to give these Starlink satellites some momentum so that when they deploy from second stage, they will start to separate from each other. So we'll be back here at T plus 1 hour and 2 minutes for deployment.
1 hour. So we have 17 more minutes together, everybody. This gives me a little bit of time to catch up here. Yeah, Jesse's awesome. Jesse is, I believe she's quality control for Falcon 9. Yeah, remember SpaceX they don't hire people to like come and be presenters. Everyone that presents on camera is simply an employee. They're an engineer or something along those lines, or a technician. No one that is on the webcast is just like a paid presenter at all. So yeah, Jesse is a awesome employee at SpaceX doing great engineering. So I love that they include people that are actually that know what they're talking about in the webcast. I think that's extremely important and sets a good example too. So, all right, this is from SW Garage. Let's go. Yeah, so far everything's been going fantastic, which is always what we want to hear. So, Vovacat says this landing footage is so meme worthy. Yeah, seriously, it does feel like it's like. I don't quite know what memes are going to come out of it. I'm sure r/SpaceX Master Race is going absolutely crazy right now with memes about like who knows. They'll do a much better job than I ever would. But you're right. That was so crazy. David, again, good to have Jessie back on camera. Yes, she did a launch. It was a scrubbed launch, but she did one just a little bit ago, a few weeks ago, if I remember right. Yeah, I think she is. You know, they rotate through all of their presenters based on kind of workloads and their availability for launch. Some people have long times where they're stuck in a project that is just simply too important to be able, again, doing work, because that is their job, is to do work, is to work on the rockets, work at SpaceX, work on the things that are important. And yeah, there's times where there might be some downtime between presenters because they might be too busy to do the broadcast. So it's kind of based on availability. At least that's my understanding. Musical Wolves. It was trying to catch a fish while it was landing. It might have been. It might have saw that fish at launch and been like, I want to get in on that action. A little fish fry beforehand. This is from Zenu. Says, what will SpaceX do when the sea is too rough to land the booster? Well, they have scrubbed before. That is a consideration. That is something they have to contend with now, is actually the sea states and how rough it is at the landing site, which is crazy. I don't think they would have, 2 or 3 years ago, they would have not done that because it was just so experimental and it's so secondary to the main mission of getting something in space. And now that's considered like an important part of their mission is recovering the booster. Now, don't forget the drone ship, the autonomous spaceport drone ship, does have 4 huge, they just upgraded the thrusters on that thing. They're like 4 times bigger or something. They're stupid big. And that helps them do station keeping, so it at least won't float around on a GPS heading. So that the target that the booster is landing on or landing at is where it thinks it needs to be. Like, it needs to hold that GPS heading. The problem is it doesn't necessarily contend too much with waves. Like, it's not like it's like a hydrofoil or an oil rig or something floating above and therefore not susceptible to waves. They are still susceptible to waves. The answer to that, if it gets to, clearly it's not that big of an issue because it's only scrubbed 2 or 3 times or something because of downrange recovery conditions. So it's not like this is a big enough deal that it's scrubbing constantly. If it was like every other launch was scrubbed because of recovery conditions, that would probably be more expensive than building a bigger, more robust platform, especially for these Starlink missions. These Starlink missions almost always land at roughly the same place. So they, if it was to the point where it was constantly rough there and constantly scrubbing, they could literally buy like an oil rig and ship it out there and have that be your downrange landing platform if they need to be. So, yeah, that's kind of what happens. But again, everything is always a trade-off. Like, how much would that cost? And how much would it cost to operate? What are the logistics of operating like an oil rig now? And how do you get the booster off of an oil rig and down onto a thing to ship it back? Like, there's still an insane amount of cost. At what point does that pay off over having to scrub? How much does a scrub cost? $1 million, $2 million, however, I don't know. So what is it's all about economics. It's all about trade-offs. And how much time would it take to pay off a bigger infrastructure for landing at that specific heading or that specific landing point? I don't know. Yeah. Don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Exactly. Sandy AP says, should the Air Force continue to invest in New Glenn? Yeah. I think it's good to have competition. And I think it's kind of sad that New Glenn lost. I think it lost. They're kind of suing, I think, right now because they have lost a few rounds of contracts. Then again, they don't have a rocket flying. So maybe prioritize getting your rocket going and get that thing up into space so you can actually start really winning some new contracts. But I do think, SpaceX has had, we'll say this, the stronger the lobby, it seems like the more funding you get for things that don't exist yet. SLS, Vulcan even. Vulcan has never flown once. A lot of the hardware for Vulcan has flown on the Atlas V. So at least they're using a lot of lineage and heritage parts in that sense. But Vulcan itself has never flown, and it's received a huge amount of funding. Meanwhile, SpaceX has almost had to always prove themselves to say they had to fly Falcon Heavy on their own before they could sell it as a rocket. Like they had to build their own heavy lift launch vehicle and then sell it. So there is still discrepancies. There's still unfair situations. It seems like but at the same time, in a way, I almost want New Glenn and Blue Origin to do that too. Like, get that rocket flying, prove you can fly it, prove its capabilities, and then win contracts. But I wish it was just an even playing field. I wish that was the case for everybody. I wish it was the case for SLS and some of those contractors. I wish it was the same for Vulcan. Like, I wish it was like, either prove it, the proof is in the pudding, get that thing out there and flying and then sell rides on it, or everyone gets funding based on a series of proposals and considerations. But there really just shouldn't be different standards for different companies. But the thing to remember, and why this is so complicated though, is, and I talk about this in my video that's coming up about Starship versus Falcon 9 and how Starship works. The thing to remember, and why this is so important, is SpaceX has traditionally always been pushing the boundaries, literally beyond. Like there's literally like people out there that study and write up things, and they say, here's what's physically possible, here's what's like this is safe, or this is a low risk investment. Because trust me, there have been plenty of rockets and programs and companies that have gone under because their plans were too ambitious. That is a risk. It simply is a risk. We've gotten spoiled because SpaceX has proven that these risks can be achieved just through sheer will and just being kind of plucky. Same with like Rocket Lab, I feel, has that same mentality of, hey, this is a huge risk, but we're going to try it anyway, and we're going to make it happen, period. And SpaceX has always taken that, like, yeah, this is risky. This is not low-hanging fruit. This is the fruit at the top of the tree, but it's there. We can get it. It just might take a little bit of time and some stuff to figure out. So I just think that I hate that it becomes like this legal battle. That stuff gets stuck in court, and it's all about lobbying and who has the most money lobbying, and not who is doing the best work and doing the hardest things. SpaceX is, again, I feel like they always get the lowest amount of funding. But it's not because it is a little bit because of politics and stuff like that. But some of it is because every time they put a proposal out, it's like this next level thing that people just don't think can happen. Like when they said they were going to land a booster, people laughed them out of the room. And then once they landed, people were like, well, cool, you landed. You're not going to reuse it. And then once they reuse it, they're like, oh, well, sure, you reused it once, but you'll never be able to reuse them over and over again. Et cetera, et cetera. If they had to win a contract based on landing a booster in, say, 2015, there's no way anyone would have signed up for that. No way. Early 2015, especially after CRS-7 I think that was June 20th, 2015. Find out for me. I don't quite remember. Something like that. June 28th, maybe June 28th, 2015. Oh, it's Elon's birthday, if I remember right. Find out when CRS-7 was. That's Elon's birthday. They still hadn't landed a Falcon 9. They were blowing up a Falcon 9 on ascent from some unknown issue. And if they were saying like, hey, we'll sell you a ride, it does require us to land and reuse the booster, no one would have paid for that. Nowadays, that's easy. They clearly have proven that that is a valuable business case. The same thing is happening to them right now with Starship. They're trying to sell rides on Starship. They're trying to win contracts with the Air Force and stuff with Starship. And a lot of people are going, like, even for the Artemis program, that's great, but you have a lot of stuff to do, and to their defense, to the people that aren't willing to just sign off a $2 billion contract to Starship, there is a lot of really big challenges in Starship. Re-entry and landing, rapid reuse, orbital refueling, the belly flop maneuver, the crazy landing maneuver. I mean, having 30 full flow stage combustion cycle Raptor engines on a stage, all of these things are hard, but none of them are physically impossible, right? So there's a lot, June 28th, there we go. So there is a lot of risk in a sense of going with writing a check for technologies that have never been proven, because the unknowns are always unknown, right? And so Starship has a ton of unknown unknowns. The difference is SpaceX loves those, and they learn from those and that's kind of their iterative process, kind of like how the Soviet Union developed rockets and engine technologies in the 50s and 60s. SpaceX takes that approach. It's just scary to invest in, and it's scary to try to, if you're working in a tight timeline, it doesn't always work out to your advantage. So, Sandy AP, you got the longest answer ever. Should the Air Force continue to invest in New Glenn? Only if the playing field is level and other people in similar situations are able to get funding like that, or if everyone's getting denied. That's my thought. Gator's Skin, are those ships automated or are they manned or crewed? Is anyone actually on board during landing? Could be dangerous if the booster were to simply fall directly on the ship. Of course, no one is near the booster landing. They have recovery vessels that are about 15 kilometers away, outside of a certain exclusion zone. No one is on the drone ship. No one, of course, is on the rocket. The rocket, everything is autonomous. They're both holding a certain GPS lock heading. The drone ship holds a heading, and the booster holds a heading too. So, yeah. Hopefully that answers that question. Xander Bose, thanks for you and what your team do. While I admit I'm a SpaceX fanboy in general, it's definitely an exciting time for space. Cheers. It's okay, it's okay to be a fanboy and to be a fan. I hate that like fanboys become this negative thing. Like, so what? Of course I'm a huge SpaceX fanboy. 100%. Like, I will absolutely admit that. But I also absolutely am a huge Rocket Lab fanboy. I'm a Blue Origin fanboy. I'm a NASA fanboy. Like, I love all of this stuff. I tend to I think it's really easy to get extremely excited about what SpaceX is doing because it's so in the open, because they're doing so many things that have never been done before, so many ambitious projects. But it's okay to be a fanboy or girl, to fan out over all of these projects. That's okay. That's a good thing. We want that. It's just, I like to encourage my audience to not hate other programs or other projects because you're a fan of one thing. I'm personally and I love when we can all come together on this, is like team space, just cheering on everyone working on this stuff, no matter what their stage is. I want the best for everybody, and I want to see this stuff working and see good friendly competition happen. And I want to see our butts in space and on the moon and back on Mars. There you go. Chris Stapps says, hi, Tim. Will Western Europe get Starlink? Everywhere. You can't not get Starlink, especially right now if you're under like 50 degrees latitude. So Western Europe already has Starlink. Like, you have Starlink satellites flying over you, just like, right now, if you're at, say, 40 degrees latitude, anywhere around the Earth, you get the same Starlink. So the only difference is whether or not your telecom and your licensing with your own countries will allow you to be able to buy the receiver. So yes, everywhere around the world should be able to purchase a receiver, assuming local legislation allows for that. So that's going to be the only thing. Sorry if I didn't mean to answer the question about like I didn't mean to answer the question of like whether or not you'll get the satellites, because I hope that was not necessarily a negative tone there. But yeah, the actual receiver part is up to your local government, basically. So push for being able to purchase those once they're available. But of course, SpaceX wants these to be globally available. That's a big part of their business plan. So yeah. The real El Badu. In 1969, McDonald's gave out moon maps with info about Apollo 8 through 11, and kids wanted to be astronauts when they grew up. We need Happy Meals with SpaceX, rocket, moon, and Mars maps, etc., etc. What do you think? Maybe ask Elon. I 100% agree. First off, thank you so much for your generous tip. That was really nice. I 100% think that I don't necessarily even know if we need like SpaceX to be partnering with McDonald's per se, but look at how much has changed already. When I started, for those of you that don't know my origin story, it all started off with this ugly thing right here, this helmet. I bought a high altitude Russian flight suit as a joke and started taking pictures of myself as a professional photographer in it, and all these juxtaposition-y, things and pictures and all of these, just kind of an art project, right? When I was working on that, I could not find like shirts or toys or props at all. Like, it was really hard to find anything spaceflight related. Already now there's like basically a rocket and toy section at Target. Like, you see rockets all over the place now. It is very much bleeding into pop culture. It is think about how many movies and series and shows have come out now about spaceflight in just the past 2 or 3 years. I can think of 10. Like, it's definitely becoming more popular. That is 100% just a fact. I don't necessarily know if we need to have like a corporate sponsored cheerathon type of thing, because I think it's happening. I think it's happening more organically. I think it's happening from the work that SpaceX, NASA, Rocket Lab, the people bringing their work out there to the world. I think it's just kind of happening, and we're seeing the Artemis program ramp up. We see, Falcon Heavy, we see DM2, we see all of these things just kind of happening, and it's doing some inspirational things. And then from there, I think we will see more of that type of public engagement. But I think it's already happening. And I think, I think it's happening. It's just maybe different this time around because of, there aren't necessarily as many campaigns that are physical like that are linking a corporation and, say, NASA and stuff. But yeah, Lego stuff. There we go. Lego, absolutely. Yeah. Let's see. Okay.
15th Starlink mission. And if you're just now joining us, we had a smooth liftoff. Stage 1 returned for its third landing of this booster. And as we await the deployment for our 60 Starlink satellites, the momentum from the second stage central axis spin will help with spreading out the satellites. And then they will use their onboard krypton gas ion thrusters to raise themselves to their final orbit. So we are just about 30 seconds or so away from that payload deployment. And it looks like we do have a live view we're looking at on your screen. That is the stack of 60 Starlink satellites right there in front of us. It looks like we're getting a little glare from the sun there as well.
So it's rotating like this on its long end.
That is because the second stage is rotating a little bit on its central axis to give the satellites momentum as they deploy.
Anything you're seeing on camera right now, those little bits of that's mostly time to solid oxygen. So anytime the thrusters fire or there's bits of ice on the fuselage coming off, you'll see that kind of floating away. Those aren't...
Peak of the sunlight.
Confirmed.
And there you can see on your screen the stack of 60 Starlink satellites have successfully deployed from second stage. And what an awesome view with the sunlight hitting those Starlink satellites. And right there, we just watched the final deployment for SpaceX's 100th successful mission. How exciting and what an incredible milestone to reach.
100.
What an awesome view as well. The Starlink satellites will soon deploy their single solar array, and over the course of a few weeks, they will distance themselves from each other and use their onboard ion thrusters powered by krypton to make their way to their operational orbit. And that brings our webcast to a close. As a reminder, today's launch marks SpaceX's 100th successful flight of a Falcon rocket since Falcon 1 first flew to orbit in 2008. To date, SpaceX has landed Falcon's first stage rocket booster 63 times and reflown boosters 45 times. To all of our supporters, customers, and most importantly, employees of SpaceX, thank you for your dedication in getting the company to this milestone. Thank you as well to the range and the FAA for supporting today's mission. If you're interested in getting future information about our Starlink service, please visit starlink.com and sign up for updates. Thank you and have a great day.
That is awesome. Congrats, SpaceX. Congrats to all the employees. Yeah, we did not actually have that in our pre-launch preview. But that's the 100th successful launch. They've had more than that because they've had more launches because there have been a couple failures. But that is a huge milestone. And yeah, let's hear it for SpaceX. That is awesome. That'll be coming up really quickly on not being... that'll be a very small number in the relatively near future, I guarantee. We're going to look back at this and be like, remember when they only had 100 successful launches? I'll bet you they will double that in just... 3 years or something. They're coming up on a rapid cadence and just really, really, really ramping it up. So we have a lot more questions to answer, guys. So stick around. I'm really excited. There's so much stuff coming up. Again, those of you listening right now, stay tuned. We will have a video coming out. Your definitive guide to Starship. It's going to teach you every system on board. We're literally going to take you inside the rocket, show you all the parts involved, show you how it works, what's new and upgraded compared to Falcon 9. It'll be very comprehensive, as my videos always end up being. It'll probably be about 40 minutes of how does Starship work? How does it do it? What's different? How is it landing? How is it doing all these things? What are these parts? What are the parts missing? What are parts new? All of the things. So I promise this will be a very good video while we continue to work on the Soviet rocket engine video too. That one is still ongoing, like I said. So stay tuned. Make sure you have the notification set if you don't, because as soon as it comes out, you'll want to watch this one. It'll definitely help you get in the zone for SN8, 15-kilometer hop. It'll also get you set in the zone and helping you guys think of good questions for me to ask Elon when I get to sit down with him here in the next couple weeks or whatever. So yeah. I'm really excited. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, let me know. Make sure you guys are on Twitter and stuff and ask me questions about what you think. I don't actually prepare for interviews. I know that's really weird. I might think about overall topics. I need to make sure I just have things that are in the back of my head constantly, which is why I always have tweet storms of how does this work? Cause it's I have all these questions in my head. When I go into interviews with people though, I don't plan them. I don't write anything down. I just go and sit and then talk. I feel like that's the best way to have a conversation with someone, is to actually have a conversation, not just a checklist of, okay, cool, thanks. Okay, next up, how many thrusters? I feel like so many of these things are going to be changing, right? Anything with Starship will probably change. Although they're getting a lot more. I don't know if you guys noticed, but last night Elon said that they're not doing an in-person presentation this year at all for Starship. It'll be a website update, which is a bit of a bummer for a lot of us. That's something to look forward to. But at the same time, luckily, good and bad, is now Starship is finally to properly basically Starship version 1. They probably have the actual proper blueprints on how to make a real Starship already. They're still building prototypes, basically, serial number 8, 9, 10, 11, all that type of stuff are still relatively, prototype-ish stages. But I think they actually have proper blueprints for a proper orbital version, and that's probably what they're going to release. So it should freeze a little bit in SpaceX terms, come together and kind of have this new plan of how Starship is actually going to achieve some of its goals. But meanwhile, we'll still see some iterative design from that and actually some improvements as well. So Yeah, I'm really excited. Let me know if there's something, especially if that document comes out before. I hope that document comes out before I get a chance to sit down and do the interview, because then we can ask some of the questions based on whatever new or solidified information or information we're still lacking in and are curious about. Yeah. So yeah. Cool. All right, let's keep going here. Greetings from MSP. Perhaps someone, I assume that's Minneapolis. Perhaps someone should have just read the instructions on the camera mount. Thanks for all you do. I can't believe that was absolutely nutty. That was one to remember for sure. For sure. Thank you very much, Madman. Brad Allen says, I'll just donate instead of buying an item. Well, thank you, Brad Allen. I appreciate that. Yeah, that works too. I really appreciate that. Again, we're constantly just dumping as much resources as possible to make the best content possible. That's why I now have an editor and producer, Andrew. Hey, Andrew. And why we're working on so many things behind the scenes, including like the flight case, like I said, that is going to be able to produce a mobile rig, like a full-blown studio in a box or two. That's going to be producing the show for SN8 and for future launches and everything. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, I just keep putting everything that I can into this project to help bring the best content I can to you guys. And for me though, and again, I do talk about this quite a bit, I'm sorry, but for me, the value in my content isn't that it comes out all the time. If you need to hear me talk about a news item or something constantly, I have a podcast every week. It's called Our Ludicrous Future. You can find it at olfpod.com. It's on YouTube. It's on all of the things. So if you're looking for more content from me and you're always wondering why it takes so long, because to me, quality and the factual information of what I'm teaching is what's most important. And in order for me to teach something, I have to get like deep enough that I have an understanding of it before I talk about it on camera, before I write a script. So for the Soviet rocket engine video, that took a long time. We actually had Ghostwriter in Discord. Hey, Ghostwriter. Ryan was working really hard on organizing and kind of lining up a bunch of engines. And then even though he had done literally months of research for the Soviet rocket engine video, it still took me weeks to understand enough about Soviet history and Soviet spaceflight history to even begin to write the script. Because trust me, when you actually have like 9 different tangential lines of things going on, to actually organize it and make it into something that flows in an organized way, not just being like the RD-171, but the RD-181 over here, but then the RD-180, like in order to actually make it make sense, you have to have a big enough overview of everything. And so that takes time. And I value that. I value that for myself. I value that knowledge and that learning process myself. And that is not, it kind of sucks sometimes because it doesn't always, like the fruits of those labors don't come out unless a video comes out. So there's always a lot of pressure to get videos out. And trust me, I want them out constantly. But what matters most is that they're factually accurate and that there's good visual representations for you guys, because I'm a visual learner. I think a lot of people are visual learner, and there aren't always great visuals out there on how this stuff works. So we're working our butts off to just make the best content we can for you guys. If you haven't watched the Artemis versus Apollo video yet, watch that one. That is truly a demonstration of taking things up to the next notch. That is the graphics that we came up with, and what Andrew ended up doing with 3D orbits and everything was awesome. So to me, that's what matters, because that's something I've never seen properly, is those 2 orbits put together. So greetings from Australia from Birdo28. How big are the Starlink satellites? Sorry, yeah, we did cover that a little bit. What did we say? 2.8 meters by 1.4 meters, and then 0.2 meters thick when they're closed, and then they open up to be a lot bigger, like 3 or 4 meters. I don't quite remember. Yeah, hopefully that helps. William says, if Starship doesn't end up getting picked for the lunar lander, is there anything preventing SpaceX from landing on the moon by itself? I think part of the Artemis Accord, as long as they're following the Artemis Accords and not doing something outside of, I think they could get permissions and do it themselves. And I would love that. If they end up not winning one of the contracts, which would be a huge shame, if they end up not winning one of the contracts, because right now there are 3 companies involved in Artemis for lunar landers. There's Dynetics and their lunar lander. There's a national team, which is Blue Origin, Lockheed Martin, Draper, and Northrop Grumman, making kind of a conjoint. That one's a fairly traditional. It looks a lot more like the lunar lander that we're familiar with. But then SpaceX, of course, has bid out a lunar variant of Starship, and it's huge. You know, this thing is 50 meters tall. The other ones are like 10. You know, it's 5 times taller. It's a big thing. And it is risky. There's a lot of technology. It relies on orbital refueling. It relies on brand new engines. It relies on all of these new technologies that have never really been demonstrated before. So if they don't win the contract, because they might down select from here, personally, I would bet it'd be very rare. I would expect when we see, I think in February, they're choosing the next round of contracts to further and actually like pay for hardware, like real hardware, not just mock-ups. NASA, that is. I would expect that they down select to 2. They're currently at those 3, like I said. If Starship doesn't, I think that'd be the ultimate like mic drop would be beating the other companies to the moon anyway and just doing it anyway. I don't know if they would do that, but yeah. Here we go. Andrew from the video has the size comparison popped up here. Let me just open this up for you guys just so you can remember. For those of you that have not watched the video, shame on you. Here's the size comparison. So the tallest one is around 11 meters, and that is the Blue Origin's national team. Yeah. Compared to 50. That's a big boy. That's a big old boy. Yep. So that's the size difference. So I would love, personally, I would love if SpaceX just... I wouldn't love if they didn't win the contract, but if they just went ahead and did it anyway, that'd be crazy. Tam, although I will say I don't think they would continue developing the lunar lander variant, probably. Well, unless there's money involved, you know, like they're not just going to develop this entirely different rocket if there's not demand for it and not someone that wants to pay for those services. So I don't know. Okay, so Tim, could Crew Dragon reach ISS as fast as Soyuz? Physically, yes. I don't exactly remember the exact reason now. Scott Manley, I think, just made a video about it recently about how and why Soyuz can do what is it now? Just a 2-orbit rendezvous, which is nuts. I don't remember if there's a certain technology or a certain system that allows them to do that Crew Dragon couldn't have. But I don't think it's ever in the plans. I think 6 hours is still the plan. One of the things, though, to remember, the Crew Dragon can be on orbit by itself for like self-sustaining for like 2 weeks. Whereas Soyuz cannot do that. And Soyuz, you don't want to be sitting there with your knees in your nose for a day or 2. You know, they don't want, they really don't want to have to be in Soyuz any longer than necessary. And Crew Dragon's just not that same situation. It's a lot bigger vehicle. So I think it's more just those types of logistics. So. Brad Allen, I want Starlink since our cable goes down whenever the power goes out. Local logistics from globalist companies suck. I want more competition. Well, this will be competition. You could have battery power and solar panels and have your own internet up, and you could have internet almost no matter what. That is one of my dreams for sure, is to have like a tiny home and just have a Tesla semi or something, just drive up into the mountains and have like my own mobile workstation / house and have Starlink on it and solar panels and just be totally self-sufficient. That would be awesome. I think that's going to be a common thing in 5 years. Mark my words. Cole Smith, velocity changes due to kinetic energy decreasing and turning into potential energy, not changing due to acceleration. Velocity changes due to kinetic energy decreasing and turning into potential energy. Yeah, that's okay. Turning into potential, not changing due to acceleration. Okay. So it's an exchange of energy. So it's an exchange of, you have something up that is, potential energy ready to drop and be, exchanged for kinetic energy. Apparently that does not, that would not put a force on something like a change of acceleration. So even though your velocity is changing, it's not a change of acceleration. Got it. That's still confusing to me. Okay, Tom's Grace. What are the design factors that go into having more versus less engines? More stages means more fuel efficiency. Why not more than 2? Complexity. It's a trade-off. Aerospace is always a trade-off. There's advantages and disadvantages to multiple engines and multiple stages. Staging isn't always more efficient. It's not always more efficient. As a matter of fact, you know, if you have a stage, you're lugging around a dead engine a lot of time, the weight of a dead engine until it's being used, right? But at the same time, if you're not staging, if you're not staging, you're also using engines that might be totally overpowered or other systems that are just way too overkill for that particular stage, right? So you might be lugging around when you could be ditching off all that other stage and those other engines. You could now go to a smaller engine and a smaller stage. So there are trade-offs like that, but of course that is complicated. There are risks in staging. There are risks in having to ignite another engine. There's costs in doing that, of course. Having multiple engines is the big trade-off is actually now, you know, SpaceX especially is kind of mastered the manufacturing. It's like one of the most expensive things are rocket engines. If they're mass produced, they're all the same, just nice and easy, just mass produce these babies like a car engine or something, you know, on a regular factory line, then they won't be so exotic and they won't be so expensive. And they can only be $1 million or whatever, only $1 million, as compared to a $10 or $20 million engine. But then you can have multiple engine out capabilities, but you also have more failure. So there's literally like a bathtub curve and a trade-off. And those are the types of things that these engineers and scientists get to study and design around. Is like, is it safer to have 30 engines, or is it now we have a 30-time increased risk in failure? But the good thing is we could experience a failure and continue mission success. So it's, we could experience multiple failures. So there's, yeah, just making sure, just checking Discord. But yeah, there's always trade-offs. Aerospace is a compromise. I used to always say, I used to teach a photography class occasionally, and it was called No More Auto Mode. And one of my favorite things that I would say all the time is that photography is a compromise. Everything. When you change any setting on a camera, there's an adverse effect or a secondary effect that can be good and can be bad, you know, with shutter speed, aperture, ISO. Everything you do can change your exposure, can make your picture brighter or darker. But each one of those things has another trade-off, has a depth of field trade-off, has a motion blur, either motion blur stopping motion effect of shutter speed, or it has noise or grain from a high ISO versus a nice clean image. But each one of those affects the exposure. Same with rockets. Like rockets is the same. There's trade-offs constantly. And it's kind of finding those converging trade-offs where it's like, this is the right option. This is the right size versus this versus this versus this, and the right cost, and we can afford this, and it seems to make sense for our business case. That's how, yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Bear Lunar, hey Tim, just wondering why Crew 1 was aborted from its original October 31st launch. Also, what's the fish? I don't know what fish it was, but there was a fish in the stream. Let's see if we can pull it up here while I continue to answer questions about the Scrubby WW. When was it? That was probably... Discord, can you guys someone find the time while I work on this? I'll have it pulled up here. But there was a fish that jumped out of the water, and I was really excited about it. That's why team fish. Andy! Oh, that's funny. T-minus 16 minutes. Wait, Cosmic Perspective, did they have it? Hang on. Let's see here. Okay, T-minus 16. Was it that early? Let's find out. I personally can't wait. I do want to see this fish again so bad. This is the fish that we all need. Here, this is from... Hang on. I'll put this up here while I'm talking, and you guys let me know if we find it. So yeah, this is going to be confusing because you're going to see me talking over me. Wow, that's... I'm tripped out. Since we're watching a replay. Okay, keep your eye on about this region down here. Oh, I'm so confused because now we also have, hold on, this is a mess. Overlay, let's give it a view. Oh man, zoom in bottom right. Let's see here. When was it? T-minus 16. Okay, we'll let it run here. There it is! There it is! Oh, it double jumped! Did you guys see that? I'm sorry, this is the most exciting thing to happen to me today. Whew. Whew. Let's do that one more time. That is too crazy, honestly. Okay, yeah. This makes my day. There's the fish. And again, that is just awesome. I don't know why that's so exciting to me. Anyway, okay, I don't know if it was more exciting than the Falcon 9 launch and landing, but frankly, it was exciting. Apparently, there were tons. I guess the fish were going crazy this morning. All right, so anyway, back to the other question. Why was Crew 1 scrubbed? There was an anomaly. Kathy Luters talked about it on Twitter. Let me see if I can pull that up. There was an anomaly that they found in the Merlin engine, and they just wanted to make sure. Kathy Luters, let me just read this to you guys so I'm not misquoting. Wow, she actually tweets a lot. Hold on. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to read this to you so that I'm not misquoting and not misrepresenting. We are making a lot of good progress with SpaceX on an engine testing to better understand the unexpected behavior observed during a recent non-NASA launch. It's too early to report findings at this point, as SpaceX continues testing to validate what's believed to be the most credible cause. Based on our current analysis, SpaceX is replacing one Merlin engine on the Sentinel-6, the Michael Freelich launch vehicle, and one engine for Crew 1 rocket that displayed similar early start behavior during testing. We are still targeting the Sentinel-6 launch for November 10th from Vandenberg Air Force Base, as we expect to complete forward work in time. We're also still working towards a mid-November launch of Crew 1. We will want a few days between Sentinel-6 and Crew 1 to complete data reviews and check performance. Most importantly, we will fly all our missions when we are ready. Hashtag Launch America. Yep. Right from the source, of course. Kathy Luters is the NASA's human space flight. She leads the NASA human spaceflight program, so she knows what she's talking about. The most credible source on this stuff, I think. So yeah, so that's what happened. They see some kind of anomaly that it's crazy to think after thousands of engine firings that they're now seeing some small, little tiny anomaly in certain Merlin engines, and just out of an abundance of caution, they're trying to figure out exactly what it is. I mean, these might be tiny little things. Like when you're dealing with, human spaceflight and billion-dollar payloads and stuff, any little like blip even on startup, like, oh, there's this little surge for a tenth of a second, that we've never observed before. Let's look into that. And sometimes looking into that is like this whole long process. So, yep. So they're looking into it, and it hopefully isn't a whole long process. Epic 14 Games. Could Starship launch satellites like Starlink? How would it release them? Space Shuttle. Here we go. That is a great question. So if we look up Starship User's Guide, there is a Starship Payload User's Guide that SpaceX put out, I think earlier this year. Yeah, March 2020. And you can see exactly how they'll deploy satellites. So it actually will have there's going to be a chomper version, a cargo version, where the payload bay has a door that opens up, and then there's a payload adapter. That payload adapter then will turn up about 35 degrees or whatever, 45 degrees, and then send the satellite out that way. So yeah, that way it's fully reusable. They can just close the hatch back up and come back in for reentry. Yeah, good question. Vovacat says, let's see, just became a patron, and wow, this landing was a reminder of how violent and high energy this stuff actually is. Absolutely, you're right. It was a friendly reminder of the forces involved, and thank you so much, Vovacat. I really appreciate your patron support. Yeah, you're awesome. Hopefully we see you in Discord, and thank you, and hi. Paul from Norway, Starlink IPO theories. I think once Starlink is operational and readily available around most places around the world, I think they will absolutely... They'd be silly to not sell off shares of Starlink and make it its own company and its own IPO where people could invest in it. And yeah, I think it'll have to be separate from SpaceX as a whole, because SpaceX as a whole still has the biggest goal of trying to get humans to Mars, and that's just not the most investor-friendly thing ever. So Starlink has a lot more clear business case. So I think it would be smart. And I think they could raise a lot of money to do that, but they could also just reap the benefits. They've already funded it. Like, they already clearly have the funding to make Starlink. So at this point, wouldn't they just be sharing off their profits? But if they need to raise more cash to roll out a more massive, like, Starship production line or all this extra stuff that they're trying to do. Sure, they could sell off, make an IPO and sell some of that off and just raise some capital that way. But we'll see. I don't really know. I would be surprised if they don't. From Tom Harders 95. I'm not supposed to read that it's Mars Fund backwards, but I'm not going to Mars. Don't make me do it. Not Heisenberg. How's it going? No external force. Everything in spacecraft accelerates the same, including your ears. No perception of acceleration. Yep. Awesome. Thank you. Field elevation at Amsterdam. Schiphol. I don't know how to actually say it. I'm so sorry, Mike, and to the rest of you that are from rest of you Danish. I am so sorry that I don't know how to pronounce that at all. Even though I've been to that airport a couple times. Anyway, minus 11 meters or 11 feet, minus 3 meters. Okay, minus 3 meters. So that's not 30. That's not nearly as much. Sorry, Dutch, not Danish. Yes, I'm sorry, Dutch, not Danish. Jeez, I am already hurting myself for that. I've been to both places, been to both airports. Gosh, I am not going to hear the end of that one. I'm so sorry. Gregory Miller, what if they did a 5-booster Falcon Heavy to compete with SLS before Starship comes online? They will never do they don't want to invest any more money into the Falcon family. It is the second Starship is running, everything else will be antiquated. Falcon Heavy will be antiquated. Falcon 9 will be antiquated. Why would they spend $1 more working on Falcon and have any other talent working on a project like that? Think about it. They still have to change out launch mounts. They still have to change out, pad infrastructure. They still have to change out so many things, re-engineer the center core again. It's not Kerbal Space Program. You're not just sticking boosters on the side. You have to change so many things. It'd be millions of dollars when all of those resources, talent, time, people, money could all just get Starship online sooner. Say it delays Starship by 6 months. That's 6 months of huge profit margins potentially and huge capabilities. Yeah. The Danish from Amsterdam. Hey, there might be Danes in Amsterdam. I don't know. But that's why, Gregory Miller, sunk cost fallacy. Don't put any more money into something that's not necessary, really. Why would they invest $1 more in Falcon when that money could be spent getting Starship online sooner? The second Starship's online, it's game over. This is from Guy Ranting. I use the term nominal insertion during sexy time. I think that's a great idea. Good luck. I hope that works out for you. I don't know if that would work too well. Mr. the Frog, why is the circularization burn so brief? It's counterintuitive that the perigee raise so much with so little delta V. So perigee, at that point, they're basically in orbit, right? You're basically... The lowest point, in the orbit at the time was probably something like 100 or 100 and whatever 120 kilometers or so in altitude versus by 250 or whatever it was. It takes such a small impulse. Don't forget the amount of thrust of that Merlin engine is a lot. The Merlin engine is very overpowered. So it imparts, 50 meters per second or something, 100 meters per second instantly. In that 1 second of impulse, it has enough thrust to impart a lot of delta V. And that's enough to raise the orbit. Yeah. Wave Arsenal says, why don't they just tether the tension rods to second stage? I don't know. It's not actually a bad idea. Second stage deorbits itself. Just pull those babies along with it. Maybe it'd just be a hard thing to manage, like, once they're deployed, how do you keep them from just wobbling around if they're on like literally a tether and then you're trying to deorbit would they smash back into the tank and destroy the tank? Like you'd have to come up with some reasonable engineering solution and not just like tying them to the stage, or also just blow up the stage, and that'd be very bad. I think it's probably about debris maintenance and debris. Like, yeah, I'm sure there is a solution that they could come up with at some point, and they might do that someday. That's not a bad idea. Yeah, banging into the second stage would be very no good, though. That'd be one way you make a lot more debris. So, yeah, I'm not exactly sure. Sean Karen, hey Tim, how do they pick up that burn broadcast from deep in the Indian Ocean? So yeah, that's a good question. I don't actually know. You can see downlink stations from all over, and they have them like kind of published out. They could be starting to utilize more and more Starlink. You know, there's a chance they could be uplinking to Starlink instead of downlinking to the ground. So yeah. Zoltan, yes, tethering would only help by reducing the number of objects to track by two. There's two tethers. It would decrease it from 2 things you have to track to 0 things you have to track after the deorbit. So, but still, I think that's not a bad idea. But yeah, Sean, sorry, I'm not exactly sure. I don't exactly have that answer, but there's probably either ground station or they're uplinking. Tahoe Rock says, is a new member. Thank you very much, Tahoe. I really appreciate that. Java Man, do you think Deer Moon / Apollo 8 flights with Starship will become a common option for space tourism? I do, actually. If Starship really is what it's hoping to be, I think that is absolutely a viable commercial thing. Like, hey, we're going to go on a week-long trip. You're going to go around the freaking moon, and we will have this awesome vehicle that's like a cruise ship for you with all these cool entertainment options and things you can do. That in 15, 20 years, I could see that being a valid business case and a normal thing for an average person to be able to afford. Like, this might be something that would be not that much more expensive than a cruise ship. Like, you know, a high-end luxury. It might be $10,000 or $15,000 or something someday. Who knows? You know, it could be really, really inexpensive. Maybe more than that. 25,000. I don't know. Even 100,000. $100,000. Like that's a ton of money. That is a ton of money, but that is something you could save up for in your lifetime and fly around the moon. Like, think about that. From millions, 50 million to $100 million down to 100,000 would be bonkers. Yeah. All right. Kimball says, what happens if Starship has a dramatic and public failure or explosion during an early non-test flight? Would it end the program or could it survive? I absolutely, hopefully, really, really don't even want to knock on wood on this one, but assuming that it's going to be flying people, it will have flown operationally for a long time to prove out a lot of those kinks because, frankly, I expect them to have a full-blown failure, either on ascent or on landing or something of a full orbital operational version. And again, hopefully this happens well before any humans ever get on it, but they absolutely should be able to survive from that. The vehicles are, in theory, Elon keeps saying that it's going to be cheaper to build a Starship than it is to build a Falcon 9. And think about how many Falcon 9s have been thrown away. Now, assuming this doesn't wipe out some infrastructure that's like, billions of dollars or something, I see no reason why they couldn't recover from it. Yeah. I mean, that's part of their thing is blowing stuff up and fixing it and seeing what happens and all that stuff. Thank you, Rick. Really appreciate you becoming a member. That's awesome. Austin, thanks for making space exciting. Now I plan to work in the aerospace after graduation. Awesome. Do it, Austin. Also, do you think the landing affects sea life in any way? That is a study. They do a study of that. There have been landings that have had to change where exactly they land because of marine life even, and seals at Vandenberg and stuff like that. That's the beauty of landing though, is that hopefully it affects sea life a lot less than throwing a booster away. So yeah, they have studied it. I don't know what the exact effects are, but it hopefully is less damaging and less impactful for marine life and for sea life and for animals of all walks of life when they reuse a booster instead of letting it crash. Papa Bear, what happens to the second stage after it delivers a payload? In this case, these low Earth orbit missions, they turn it around and they do a small deorbit burn, and it will end up splashing down in an exclusion zone, a predefined area in the Indian Ocean. Where there is no shipping traffic or airplanes either. They actually literally map it out. People can't fly or ship through there during that time. And they deorbit it. And then for higher energy missions like geostationary transfer orbit missions, they kick it out into a graveyard orbit where it will not run into anything. From the Crossroads 09, ask Elon if he's considered multiple SpaceX facilities, launch sites around the world, if he wants to build thousands of Starships. Yes, he's already said this, that there will be Starship especially if it's point-to-point Earth, there will be Starship pads all around the world. But even for orbital missions, there should be Starship pads wherever it makes sense to make one. And they could build Starships basically locally, kind of like he's doing with Gigafactory, with Tesla. You can see Elon's gears turning because in the things he's doing elsewhere. So he's already building new gigafactories so they can build Teslas locally and, save on those, the shipping and all the logistics there. Just build them locally. They have Shanghai. They have, Gigafactory right now in Nevada doesn't really do much. Gigafactory in Buffalo doesn't really do much for the actual production of cars, but they're working on a new gigafactory in Austin, Texas. They have Shanghai. They have Giga Berlin. That is his thing, is like, let's produce these things locally here and not have to ship cars everywhere. I think the same thing with Starship. Let's build these things locally, right next to the launch pad, roll it out and fly it. Maybe they're still going to be building engines in, Hawthorne, but Hawthorne's getting crammed. I wouldn't be surprised if they build engines somewhere else someday. How cool would it be if they started building engines and manufacturing them at mass scale in one of the other locations, like in Texas or in Alabama or in Florida, or one of these other places. Since if they're going to make a full production line for Raptors, which they will need to do if they're going to have 30, 40 Raptor engines on a per vehicle, even when reused, you're still going to have to produce a lot of Raptors. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And we will see multiple launch sites for sure. Mirko says, baby Leonardo is kicking happily in her mommy's belly while listening to your voice. Looking forward to watching your next video with his future Martian. That is awesome. Well, thank you very much, Mirko, and congrats to you and your loved one and the little tiny human inside there. Just a little baby in there. That's awesome. Congrats, and thanks for you're going to be raising a kid in the new Apollo era, and thanks for wanting to get them excited and entertained and educated, and yeah, maybe ship that little baby off to Mars once it's safe to do so, huh? That's super cool. Thank you very much. Chris Kibb, thank you for the membership. I really appreciate that. David Oliveros, what is the reasoning behind painting the lunar starship white? I don't actually know exactly. It might have to do with thermal considerations for the lunar surface. Might have to do with, I don't actually know the exact reason. I could ask that when I hang out with Elon. Hopefully we can talk about lunar starship. I'll find out if that's going to be an option. The real Albadu, the problem is that there aren't accurate toys and models based on real current rocket technologies. I want SpaceX, Blue Origin, Rocket Lab, etc. You're right, the real Albadu. I do too. Licensing and stuff like that kind of becomes a little bit of an issue when you're dealing with, companies and stuff like that. But yes, I also want, I want to be able to buy these, in a store, just straight up, or any of this stuff. I think all of this stuff should be available. MOVA globes are available, but not and these are available from ULA's site, but you can't buy this in store. You can't buy this in store. You can buy these at Ollie Braun's store at buzzspacemodels.com, and you can buy, this is a Lego one, and this you also can't buy. So yes, I agree. Yeah. Musical Wolves, why did Apollo not have a lunar fish module? That's a fantastic question. I don't know. I'm really into this fishing thing now. That's why I'm not going to Mars. I want to see more fish jumping. I don't know. Great question. These are the questions that matter. Kelly says, your shirts says, my shirt says I am going to Mars. Technically, my shirt does make it seem like I'm part of the in situ resource utilization team for an upcoming Starship mission. It does have in situ resource utilization. I don't want to go to Mars. I want to encourage other people to go to Mars. Thank you, Kelly. Ted Moon. Thank you, Ted. That is awesome. Thank you, Tim. You inspired me to write another poem about space. In the meantime, I have written one called Celestial on zcluna.com. Love what you do here. That's awesome, Ted. Well, I don't want to read a whole long poem, but I will pull this up for my own reasons. zcluna.com. And we're gonna find Celestial. So how do you spell celestial? Oh, there we go. There is a beautiful poem. It's not too long. You guys should probably check this out. Awesome. Thank you very much, Ted. And that's so cool that aerospace and spaceflight is inspiring all works of everything. So all different types of art. It's awesome to see that people are inspired in different ways. So very cool, Ted. All right, Pedro Ortiz, how's it going, Pedro? Hey, Tim, great job today. As always, any news on the fairings today? Are they going to stop catching them with nets? No, I think they want to keep catching them with nets. They just had a boo-boo last time, just last Sunday or whatever. They had a little bit of a boo-boo, and the nets got broken, and the ship may have even been damaged a little bit. So for now, they're probably just holding off until they get that fixed up and maybe beefed up. Knowing SpaceX, they'll be like, okay, we can do this. Let's just beef it up a little bit more or something. So, yeah. Thank you very much. Thomas, hey, Tim, help support open source video alternatives like Odyssey.com. We're going super fast and have huge tech science creators like Kevin, Felix, Veritasium on board. Synchronize your channel today or let's chat. Well, Tom, yeah, I would consider that if it's something that I don't have to, be exclusive to. I would consider that, Thomas. I'll check my email for your beacon. Thank you, Tom. Adrian says, hey, Tim, do you think a fully fueled Starship could do a propulsive reentry without a heat shield? Could be used to return lunar lander version. Adrian, I actually talk about this in my video. So first off, no. Why would you want to return the lunar lander? Second off, in order to refuel it, you have to then do 10 other normal versions that have to do a landing, right? So you now just did 10 more launches to avoid a thing that's been done 10 times, right? That's the thing is people ask, why can't you slow the upper stage down enough to enter at the speed of a booster? It would take as big of a rocket to do that as it did to get it into ascent, right? To get it up into space, it takes all this energy of this huge giant rocket. It would take that huge giant rocket again to slow it down enough to slow down to the same speed as a booster. Well, maybe not necessarily the exact same size of rocket, but same amount of energy. Because that's the thing is the atmosphere, although it's really damaging and creates a lot of heat, removes a lot of energy. It's literally removing that same energy that was injected to it in the first place. So in order to fully fuel it, to avoid having to re-enter, you have to send literally 10 other rockets up there that all have to do that re-entry process. Just so you're avoiding re-entry on one. It doesn't work out. But yes, theoretically, you probably could slow it down almost enough to not have to do as crazy of a maneuver, but you're still going to have to deal with re-entering at some point in some forces. So yeah, interesting question though, Adrian. We do talk about that a little bit in the video. Tibber says, when camera was wobbling, F9 might have been flying somewhat sideways over it. SpaceX could put a fisheye camera pointing upwards on the ASDS. They sure could. Fisheyes are, the distortion and the perspective of fisheyes is very confusing for people. They're not a great option always, but they have had literally GoPros out on the deck and different black magics with fisheye lenses and stuff. But they probably could, or it'd be cool if there was a tracking camera that tracked down, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did a bit of a dogleg maneuver like that. If it had extra horizontal velocity and to make up for it, it had to do a swinging thing. Who knows? They could also be practicing some of that swinging stuff a little bit. I mean, not too much, but practicing canceling out horizontal velocity in the propulsive landing so they can nail it down with Starship. Just making sure that their PIDs, their control scheme is up to that task. So who knows? This is from Paul from Norway. Of $420.69 ticket to Mars. That would be the Elon way, wouldn't it? That would be the Elon way. Or 420,000. Sorry, I forget European. So dot means, yeah, same as a comma. $420,690 US. Maybe 69,420, the same price as a Model S, because of course he had to make it 69,420, as Elon is sometimes a child. And that's what we love about him. Yeah, I think that will be exactly what happens. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to get out of here because we have a video to make, and it's going to be an awesome one. So, yeah, thank you guys all so much for tuning in and hanging out with me for the past, what has this been? This has been a long broadcast, I think. We've been live for over 2 hours. Man, thank you for hanging out with me for 2.5 hours on a Saturday morning. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Again, if you want to help me do what I do and get 10% off of the Future Martian t-shirt today, use coupon code LAUNCHDAY. Take 10% off of that. Shop around while you're on here. Get some awesome new shirts and awesome new merchandise. We've got you covered for all of your nerdy stuff. Yeah, and of course, like I said, we do have a little tiny baby human stuff now too. You can get that at everydayastronaut.com/shop or shop.everydayastronaut.com. Same thing, same website, everydayastronaut.com/shop. And of course, if you want to join and get more behind the scenes, get a sneak peek of that Starship video, see the dialogue cut of it before it goes public, see the rough cuts of it, give your feedback, make sure I'm not missing any important questions. You can do that by becoming a Patreon supporter by going to patreon.com/everydayastronaut and hang out and see us in Discord. See us in Discord and come hang out and party. It's a good time. You'll probably learn a little bit more about like the trip coming up for SN8 and stuff, because that's where I end up chatting about all that stuff. And also, by the way, patrons, we are doing a Patreon. I need to set it up, but we're doing a Patreon live stream tomorrow. We got to do our monthly one since we're almost at the end of the month, and it might not time out well to do it any other day, because next week I might be going down to, I don't know, but I might be in Boca Chica or going down to Boca Chica already by next week. So let's do our Patreon stream tomorrow. Patreons, get ready. Yep, so I'll put that in there. I'll do an announcement here in just a little bit. So, yeah, so if you want to join our live stream tomorrow, I end up almost always just playing Kerbal with the patrons, but we also do a commander and a pilots and above live stream as well. And those ones are a little bit more like intimate. They're a little bit short. Like it's like 30 minutes to a 1 hour where you get a little bit like way more behind the scenes. So yeah, if you want to join that, go to patreon.com/everydayastronaut. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people, and you'll see a new video soon, and hopefully some more launches and SN8 and a new interview with Elon Musk. Bye, guys.